Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it! Some people dream of success while you're gonna wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not gonna stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it!
That's right, everybody!
Just
do it!
Do it! Yes, you...
We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get the particulars, the enforcement. But at the end of the day, each and every member should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime.
Nonpartisan liberty for all. It is Monday. We are here especially on a Monday, as Wednesday is my work Christmas party, so I won't be here. So I wanted to make sure I gave you 3 shows this week, and it is Monday, December 14th, 2015, and we have a surprise for you. I'm coming to you live from Las Vegas, but we have a surprise guest co-host who can only join us for an hour, but they are going to join us. So how are you, surprise guest co-host? No, I have to turn this off. Sorry.
Surprise! I'm great. I am so happy to be back, to be honest. I didn't realize how much I would miss doing Nonpartisan Liberty for All.
Well, thank you. That makes me feel better, especially when some people say that nobody likes me. So,
they don't know what they're talking about.
But thank you. I know it was last minute too, and Ellen was kind enough to come on, and we haven't talked to her in a while. So it's great to have her back, even if it's just for an hour. And we've missed her, obviously, on the show. I'm sure everyone's been pretty bored listening to me. I did get a couple new co-hosts, so that's good. We got Shire Dude, who's going to join us every other week. And then the other side of the week is Ken Shorjan, who's been with us for a while, who does the economy and the geopolitics stuff. And then Vivian Fire is actually going to start with us on Thursday. And she is a Las Vegas local. So I'm excited about her starting. But
congratulations.
If, of course, there's still room if you always want to come back, or if you even want to just do your own show. We'd love to have you back at any time. But
thank you very much for the offer, but I'm a little busy this time of year. I've got so much going on, so I don't know if maybe in a few months I'll reconsider. But right now I've got my whole schedule filled up with all different sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a busy time of year, and I know you got a lot of stuff that you're working on. Even the reason you got to leave early tonight is a group that you're part of, that Shire Dude's also part of too. What was it, the sketch something?
Yeah, so I'm in this group that's working on comedy sketches for Liberty Forum, which is a forum that the Free State Project hosts every year. This year it's in Manchester I think it starts like February 18th. But I'm in a group where we are actually writing and performing sketches at Liberty Forum, and we get to be the authors, and we get to like peer edit each other's sketches, and it's a lot of fun. I've had so many laughs and good times, even just communicating with people like over the internet. It's a lot of fun, and I feel really excited to actually perform something that I've helped write. This is like an exciting time for me.
Yeah, that's something that I luckily had I didn't perform at like Liberty Forum or anything like that, but I was always into, my bachelor's in film, and I got to do a lot of different skits and a little short movie, but it was like 30 seconds or something. But yeah, it is a really fun thing, and hopefully we'll get to see those on the internet. I'm sure somebody's going to film them.
Oh, yeah,
so
definitely.
We'll be able to see those and definitely talk about them. If not with you, we'll be able to talk about them with Shire Dude at least, and we'll get to bring you up as well. So...
Yeah.
So,
well, unfortunately, I don't want to share any details of it right now because
I understand.
I'd be spilling the beans.
saying after everything is over with, and we have the videos where we can go through on a show and go through some of the videos and talk about them, and that would be
I will say one
fun
thing
to do.
There's a skit where I will be playing a man for half of it, at least.
Will you be a transsexual, or so will you be half of it?
I can't say anymore.
Okay, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. So are these going to be taking place, like if you go to Liberty Forum, can you sit and watch them?
It's going to be performed live. And each sketch is about... somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes, and I think we have 6 of them so far, and then there's going to be a few intermediate things.
Okay, great. So I'll be looking forward to that. I unfortunately am not going to be at Liberty Forum. Not really financial issues. I mean, I could technically spend my money on it, but I need to save up as much money as possible right now, so...
Yeah, I mean, you could technically fly, like 1,000 miles to New Hampshire, or you could
like
save up for your wedding.
3,000. Yeah. So I could always ask my mother to pay for it because I could visit her in the process, but because she's there in Boston. But yeah,
that's not far.
No, not at all. So I probably could get her to,
Cough up the cash.
me and then stay at her house and then
just do it.
Drive up there. Just do it. That is crazy. I've been playing that since I heard it, and I found it by accident. It's crazy.
Somebody showed that to me a while ago, and I just thought it was insane. But it's so hilarious.
Yeah, I had to play it just because I'm like the one I saw was the one that they put the Free State Project behind it, because there's basically one with a green screen, so you can do whatever you want with it. And people have done all these different things. But I got it from the one where it was saying to join the Free State Project. So it was saying, like, just do it, like, just join the Free State Project. And then at the end, Ian Friedman of Free Talk Live is talking and says, how to join the Free State Project and whatever. So I didn't play that part. But yeah, it's pretty funny.
Oh, wow.
I gotta kind of clip it out, so maybe I can just have like a soundboard type thing where I just press it and just do it.
Yeah, you could have that as a drop just for any time during the show.
So
just do it.
I gotta get to that, and I want to kind of create like a whole, one of those soundboard type things at some point. But I've been way behind. I mean, even with the intro to the show, there's things I want to keep that same music, but I want to change some things on that and add some stuff. And I'm just behind, I guess, on a lot of things. So hopefully at some point I'll catch up. I was hoping during the Thanksgiving vacation, but that didn't happen. But now I got Christmas and New Year's coming up, so we'll see what happens then. Maybe I can use my time productively. I don't think that's a word, but plus I started reading again, which is good.
Good.
I'm reading a book on Jim Mars, who's a great author. Have you ever seen the movie JFK?
No, I have not.
And people tell me that, and I'm like, you got to see JFK. And it came out in 91, so it shouldn't be like even a buy it. You could probably buy it for like $5 or something. But it's, based on the assassination of JFK and the investigation, the only investigation by, I can't think of his name right now, the district attorney in Louisiana. And Jim Mars wrote one of the books that the movie was based on. It was based on 2 books. And he also wrote The Rise of the Fourth Reich, which was how Nazism never died. It just was imported into the United States. He wrote stuff about the banks. And what I'm reading now is about depopulation. So it's not a... It's an informative book, but it's definitely not a positive or fun. I don't read like fun, happy books. Well, I do have a book on WordPress for Dummies, so that's not a negative book. And I got something about radio too that I want to read, so I can help to improve marketing and just improve myself. So I did get a book on radio. I need to buy some of these books because I know I'm not going to get to them by the time the library is asking. And you can technically renew it as many times as you want, as long as somebody doesn't have a hold on it. We have a great library system here, but if somebody has a hold on it, then you have to return it. So that's what kind of sucks. And it all depends. I think a lot of the books that I take out that, like the Jim Mars books and stuff like that, there's not a lot of people that are taking those out, but I'm sure the WordPress for Dummies, like everybody wants, to learn about stuff like that. So we'll see. And we'll see about the radio book, which I actually renewed once already. So I'm trying to balance work, radio, reading, my relationship, feeding dogs and cats. And yeah, it's a
tough life.
It's a fun life. My job that I worry about getting laid off from all the time. And yeah, it's wonderful. I did win $400 on Friday, so that was nice. And
nice. How'd that happen?
It just magically dropped from the sky. No, I actually, because I had I don't gamble anymore, like once in a while, maybe like once every couple months, but I got my vacation pay because we were able to sell vacation. So I got like an extra check. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go take a certain amount of money and, if I lose it, I lose it. If I win, then I win. And I won. So that was good. And the reason why I won is I was making $100 bets and I won like 10 in a row. And I was down actually. So it didn't, I would have been up more if I wasn't down to begin with, but maybe not 10 in a row, but I just kept winning $100 bets. Because I have like a system, like if they kept busting, or if I got blackjack, and that happened maybe 5 or 6 times in a row, and then once I got,
so you were counting cards.
No,
just admit it. Just admit it.
You're right. No, it was the machine. It was like you can't in the machine. It was like, well, you might not, but they have it's like a video poker machine with blackjack. It's kind of like that. So they're totally different than like the real cards. It's all programmed and shit. So I always tried to analyze it for patterns and stuff like that, and obviously I didn't do too well in the past, but I've had my ups and downs. But anyway, I finally got to a certain point and I said, okay, I'm done. Like, I got $400. I was even going to be done when I just got back to even. So, but that kept happening. And then once I got over even, I'm like, okay, they busted again. I got a blackjack. And I'm like, as soon as they don't bust or I don't get a blackjack, then I'm done. Because I was already up money. And then that happened. And I still won. I think I had a 19 and they had an 18. But at that point, I'm like, I'm done. I got my $400. I'm out. And that's it. So it's not like I did, something not that I'm saying I'm a gambling addict or anything, but I can control my gambling for the most part. Unless I'm like totally wasted, which I haven't drank in like a year and a half. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That I haven't. The last time I drank, you know who it was with? It was with Mark Edge, actually. The last time I drank was with Mark Edge. It was the night of my birthday. Like that night, like going into that night. So once it turned 12, it was my birthday.
Yeah.
So I kind of talked him into staying out. Like, he was going to go back to his room like, hey, well, it's my birthday. And I was buying shots. And yeah, that the next day wasn't too good. I didn't go to work.
No, it never is. It's never a good day afterwards.
That's why I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to drink anymore. There's no point in this. You act like an idiot and you get bad hangovers and feel like shit. And I'm like, and I pay for it, like literally as well too. Like you pay for it. So
yeah.
Like, nah, I'm not fucking with that anymore. So
I know it's really not worth it. I thought that when I turned 21, it was going to be so much fun, and it's not. I mean,
no.
I've had a few nights where I've gotten a little bit too drunk and woke up the next day totally regretting it. I mean, the day that I went on Sovereign Tech, actually, I got sick during the show, which I hope nobody knew about, but I mean, now they do. But it was just kind of odd. Like, all of a sudden, in the middle of talking, it was like hours into the day already, and I felt like I have to go throw up. So I just like ran away, and he paused the show. And
all of a sudden, you're just like taking off. Yeah, it can be bad, man. I would get the worst. I don't know what was wrong with me, and maybe it was because when I drank, I was more of a binge drinker. So like maybe I wouldn't go like a couple months without drinking, and then when I drank, I would just like drink and drink, and my hangovers were so bad. I mean, I would get 2-day hangovers or 3-day hangovers.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it was
awful.
So bad. Yeah. And you know what? I always had thought this, but it's, I don't know. Ever since I got hit by a car when I was 20, and literally like on the freeway, a car hit me and
wow.
And hit me like I wasn't in another car. And I went up in the air and fell down on the side of my face, and I thought somebody punched me, and I was all fucked up. But ever since then, when I drank, it always felt a little different. Like, it was weird. It's hard to explain, but I didn't get like the same kind of happy, like, buzz. I always got like a kind of headache type thing. I don't know. I don't know that had anything to do with it, to be honest, but
maybe it did. Maybe it's some sort of like brain
could
injury.
have. It feels like it did. So, but of course that didn't, stop me. I wasn't even 21 yet when
Right.
that happened. I was only 20. So yeah, my eye was like swollen shut for like 2 days. That was fun. So yeah, I've had a lot of fucked up things happen to me, physically, especially, where I've been jumped so many times, and I got hit by a car, and when I was a kid, my dad would punch me, and yeah, I'd like to say I'm a pretty tough person, but it's been a while, so I don't know. But I'm not saying that I can necessarily still fight. I would think I can, but I know I can like take a punch to the head at least.
Well, I like verbally fight. I like debates.
Yeah, well, I don't like fighting anymore, although yesterday I was very pissed off and felt like punching somebody in the face. But the last time I got in a fight, I did get in a fight with a casino with like 4 dudes by myself, and that was fun. I didn't really get that hurt, so it was okay.
That was fun.
I'm saying sarcastic.
scary.
I'm saying sarcastically, it was fun.
Yeah,
Like,
I've never
not
been in a fight,
seriously.
and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, like I could probably pick you up and throw you like 10 feet. Like you're like tiny. So I hope you don't get in a fight, because, not to say that small people can't fight, but yeah, I wouldn't. I think you should get a gun, essentially.
Well, I do have mace most of the time.
Well, that's good, at least to have that. But you should probably get. I could see you with one of those nice little pink guns.
Pink's not my color.
Really? Peach. I don't know.
Well,
have
maybe
different colors.
blue, dark blue.
There you go. Like a revolver or something like that, just for protection. And that's why and not to get off topic, because I want to get to, I know you don't have a lot of time, so I want to make sure you get in this conversation on labels. But that's why I hate those fucking feminists that are against guns. And I've heard a girl in the interview, it was actually with Sean Hannity, who's kind of a douchebag, but he's one of the lesser douchebags, because I think he really believes in some of the stuff he says. I don't know. He comes off more likable for some reason. But anyway, maybe it's because everybody else is really an asshole, and compared to them,
Maybe.
he's just a semi-asshole. But, I mean, he was asking the girl. He wasn't mean about it. He's just like, well, how can you be a feminist and want to take guns away from women? That's like the equalizer to, I mean, if you banned guns, women would be at a disadvantage right away. I mean, it's just a fact.
I mean, we already are all the time, because physically we're just not as well equipped.
Right. So that's what I mean. If you, but a woman with a gun, with a man without a gun, I would give the advantage probably to the woman, depending how close you are, because the guy could maybe grab the gun. But at least it helps to equalize, the situation, to give the woman some power there to defend herself. But besides that, unless you're, one of those UFC fighters, most women, and this is just a biological fact, I know feminists get offended on every little thing now, but the majority of women are not as strong as men. It's just a fact. It's hormones. It's muscle mass. It's all of these things. So if for feminists, I would think, I want women to be as safe as possible. I hear about a serial rapist, or any rape for that matter. It really bothers me. Because I have a thing with even disrespect for women. And I've known a lot of guys that are assholes and totally disrespectful of women. And I've always been like the more sensitive type person and whatever. And I'm not just saying that that's actually true, but So behavior like that, if somebody's just joking around, not to a woman directly, if they made a joke about whatever, I don't get offended easily neither, and it's their right. But going up to a woman and being disrespectful or, bothering her and stuff like that, where it's, there's a difference between just asking somebody to dance or for their number, but there's a big difference between that and then when they say no, being disrespectful and harassing them. And that's the thing that I say to my fiance, like, I don't give a fuck if a guy tries to talk to you or ask you out or ask you for your number, but if he asks and you say no and he keeps bothering you, that's the situation where I want to do something about that. Even though, at this point in my life, I try to avoid fights and stuff like that. But if I was there, I'd say something. So,
right.
Sorry,
I think that's like kind of
gonna...
noble that you like want to stand up for women. But, and I totally agree with you on the statement that women are just naturally not as strong as men.
What's fucked up
they don't build that muscle mass.
Sorry to interrupt, but what's fucked up is some feminists that will offend them saying that. But it's a fact. It's a biological fact. It's right. Like saying that women have boobs. I mean, women have boobs. It's biological fact. So to say that women in general are not as strong as men is a fact as well, unless they're taking steroids or like there are some women that I guess work out all the time, but that offends them. This whole political correctness and the feminism and even things when it comes to race, and I grew up, I've talked about it, I used to hang around with all the black kids in a majority white community, and I used to get discriminated against from both sides. So I know about racism, and I've seen it and all of that, but still some of this shit goes way too far with the political correctness, and it just gets ridiculous after a while. But tonight, speaking of that political correctness, and it kind of, I guess, relates to what we're going to talk about tonight, which is labels. Now, we're really going to keep it to what would be another label, the liberty community, but people that claim to believe in freedom and liberty. And I guess I can say it that way, where it's not a label, it's a description, where we're going to talk about different labels of different, I guess, whether you want to call them sex, S-E-C-T. I always have to say that because it sounds like I'm saying sex, like having sex. I'm having sex with a label right now. But it's worse with different words than with others. It definitely is. The reason behind it, of course, is to identify somebody quickly without having to give them a paragraph. Like if you're talking to somebody and they want to know, oh, what do you believe politically? And you could use a label, like you could say voluntarist or libertarian or whatever, without having to give, a whole paragraph on it. And of course, that's the whole point of it in the first place. Even with the other parties or other beliefs like conservatives and progressives, and same thing, so you can identify people or identify groups without having to give a whole long presentation. And there's, do you have any other thoughts on that, on why people, because there are other reasons I think that I have as well, but just to give you a chance to jump in, like why people use labels politically.
Well, I think the main reason that people use labels is because it's incredibly easy to be able to sum up one person in one word.
Right, like what I was saying.
Yeah, and it's not always correct, but I don't think people really care about being correct. People like being able to fit into niche groups and feel special. And when they use these target words, like in political cases, if you're talking about, those damn Republicans, or like the leftists, all that
Right.
that stuff. Like those are just words that have a meaning in everybody's minds that kind of rings a bell, and people are like, "Oh, I know what you're talking about."
They do it
yeah,
all day
those people.
and talk radio. That's all they do. It's so fucking ridiculous. And how people see, I look at this like I've mentioned how in the morning, sometimes I'll put on the local radio station and Glenn Beck's on, and on the afternoon on my way home, Mark Levin, that I don't know if you ever heard him, but the guy who, the Constitution. I was walking down the street the other day, and then all of a sudden I saw the Constitution. I was just trying to do how he goes from like the regular voice. He sounds like a mean, hateful fucker. And he also worked for Reagan, who did so much damage with the drug war. The guy never sounds happy or nice or anything. And I'm sitting there and, I don't think I have the greatest show in the world. I don't. But I'm like, people like him are out there. And I mean, he's huge.
Why do people listen to someone who's so angry?
I don't know. And sometimes he's even asked to his callers that like him. But, I mean, the ones that are, the liberals, he'll make fun of and he'll be mean to. He won't even, so, I mean, I have a show that's totally different where, I was explaining to my new co-host that even, with the kind of back and forth that we have, that what my show is about is not arguing with my co-host. It's finding people who have the same views so we can promote those views. Because if you want to hear conservative and progressive and whatever views, you can just turn on any fucking station. And it's also to get, different ideas about it. Like I gave her an example of, we agreed on the same thing, but you had different points. And it also helped me that, I didn't think of that. That's true. And you'd give your points and I would give my points, and we come to the same conclusion. And I pretty much agree with most of your points anyway. But that's the type of show that I do. Now, maybe because people aren't arguing and yelling at each other all the time like they are on other shows, it takes away from the entertainment. I don't know. But I'm listening to this guy and I'm like, like I said, I don't think I'm great or anything, but this is what people want. I mean, and I'm not going to change for anything. I mean, I would change like segments and stuff like that. But I mean, my goal and what I do is I promote the ideas of freedom and liberty, not fucking, argue back and forth with people and complain about, the liberals or the conservatives or and that's all they do, man. And they say the same shit over and over again. But anyway,
yeah, well, that's all well and good, but people really love to have something to hate. So if you can present yourself in a way that's extreme, then you're more likely to get those, a wider variety of people listening.
Yeah, you're right. You get the haters too. Like I'll listen and I can't stand them. So you get a certain amount of people that listen to you that they're not listening because they like you. They're listening because they can't stand you. I think I'm more apt to get people that if they're going to listen, it's probably because they like me or they're interested in what I'm talking about, not a lot of haters, although I'm sure there are people that there are haters out there.
Well, there are a lot of people that just like to have something to hate. And if they can hear somebody who's equally miserable to them that also hates things, then that makes them feel justified.
No, that's a good point. But the other thing with labels, I think, too, is that it can be used negatively to group a whole bunch of people. And I'm not just talking about political labels, but, negative terms that you can use to, like those are the unpopular people, or those are the nerds, or those are the whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of labels that are like pejorative now that have that negative feeling or meaning to them, even though objectively what they mean is something totally different or separated from the negative intention.
Yeah, and it's I think if we really think about it now, again, we're just focusing more on things that have to do with people that believe in freedom and liberty. And I'm specifically saying that because I don't want to use a label to describe talking about labels. But I mean, it can be applied. It's
impossible to avoid them
throughout society. Yeah, I think we're label crazy in a way because we label. I mean, people all the time, we label people, and I think the government loves it because that's how you get a lot of infighting among people, race, religion. They like to divide people. And it might not necessarily be for, with the government, I think it's for negative reasons, but you may have a company that's trying to sell something. So they want demographics. So they're looking at race and religion and age and this and that, and they might not have bad intentions, but it still puts everything in, everybody's in some kind of category.
Yeah, and I say it's impossible to avoid because we have so many words and ideas that we're capable of holding in our mind, but one label or idea might contain, like 100 others. Like, how do you define something like libertarian? Because I hear that word a lot and everybody uses that, but it seems like everybody I talk to uses that to define themselves, but there's so many other different labels that relate to that, and there's so many different ways that can be interpreted. So it's just like we can't avoid labels, but then again, they almost don't even explain to us everything that we expect them to.
Yeah, and that's the problem, and that's what I want to focus on, where I am no longer, and I haven't anyway, because every time somebody asks me, I'll say, well, if I had to, I'd say this. And I do sometimes say like the liberty community, but really, what the fuck is that? It's like saying, they say the black community. Where is the black community? Is it, like it's such a fucking really derogatory term, because really what you're talking about, I think what they're talking about is people that live in a neighborhood that the majority of people are black is the only, well, that's not what they mean, but that's really the only true usage that you could use it for, because not everybody that's black is part of the black community. It's like my fiance is Mexican and they'll say the Hispanic community. Is she part of the Hispanic community?
Well, that's one of those tricky words that takes on different meanings. Like community could be a physical place, or it could just be a group of people.
But they use it as a group of people. Like if you're Hispanic, you're automatically part of, or if you're black, you're part of the black community. It's unfair, and it's kind of, I don't want to use the word racism in a way, but like you get identified as, well, I'm part, like they speak for every single black person. Now, if you want to say a specific community that happens to be, 60 or 70% black, then you could call that a black community. You could say the majority of the people that live in this town are black. Okay, fine.
Well, maybe, but what
that's not how they use
does that
it.
hold? like, how is that even important? Because even within communities that are pretty much homogeneous and like what group of people are in there, they will never hold all of the same viewpoints.
Right. Exactly. It's just, it's the way they use it to their own advantage. Usually it goes back to the government and what the government wants to portray and what they want the media to portray. But
I think it's just a lot of ignorant people that don't understand that labels don't define everything.
We got that too.
I really think that a vast majority of people are they're just not literate when it comes to understanding exactly what it is they're saying.
Well, but I think with and I don't want to take too much time on this because I want to get to Libertarian, but like when they say the black community, I think government media wants people to think that every black person lives like this in a poor black community, and they'll show like they'll find the most ignorant person in that neighborhood. They'll go to a poor ghetto neighborhood, find the most ignorant person.
They're raping everybody up in here.
Yeah, like that's what they'll do. And the truth is that the majority of black people, I don't even think live in communities that are majority black. I think they live in communities that are majority just mixed race. So I think that's a bunch of bullshit anyway. But when you get to libertarian and all of these other words are,
like
I guess, not subsidiaries. That's like when a company has other companies under it. But they're all, like libertarian would be at the top, and they would be like,
it would split off into different
aspects.
branches.
Yeah, exactly. It would be like parts or different aspects or different sects. Again, SECT, not SEX. But libertarian would be the main, like, if you were drawing something at the top, you'd have libertarian. Then, like you said, you'd have like a branch down, like anarchist. And then you might have like, or left anarchist, right anarchist. Maybe you'd split down there. And then maybe you'd have voluntarist. And then maybe you'd have maybe minarchist.
But and at one end is anarchist, and at the other end is like dictator.
Well, if you're including everything, I guess. But when to look at libertarian in the word, it has been so bastardized, really, that I don't know how anybody can really call themselves a libertarian and feel comfortable that people know what they represent or what their real political feelings are. Because you have Republicans calling themselves libertarians. You have people on, progressive radio, and I have clips of it. They call libertarians Republican-like, which is total bullshit.
I know it's scary to think that if you associate yourself with a certain label, people can take that however they interpret it and judge you based on that. So the thing I've learned to do is just to get to know a person and kind of explain what I think on certain things before saying like, oh, this is what I call myself. I just try to avoid labels altogether and go straight to like defining what it is that I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, and that's really what I try to do as well. And I actually didn't do it today, but at the beginning of the show, I usually read every show a couple sentences of what the show's about, where I say we promote the ideas of true freedom and liberty, meaning being able to do whatever you want as long as you respect the freedom of others and don't directly interfere with their freedom, as well as exposing government for what it is, a mafia based on extortion that rules without consent by threat of force and violence. So I'm expanding, and I'm not claiming any type of label, but and I don't want to give a whole something too long. I think that's, long enough to be descriptive enough. It's not too long. It's not too short. It, I think, gives enough. And I'm constantly revising that too, where I'm thinking, well, maybe this is, let me change this. But that's what I would say when somebody asked. I mean, I wouldn't say that exactly, but if somebody asked me what my views were, I wouldn't say libertarian. I wouldn't say anarchist or voluntarist or any of those, because voluntarist, I think, is the least corrupted. So that's why I use that, if anything. If I have to use a label, I'll say voluntarist, because most people aren't really aware of that, and the quote-unquote powers that be haven't had the chance to corrupt it yet, like they have with libertarian and anarchist. I mean, anarchist is totally your total chaos in the eyes of most people.
Yeah, that word has basically been thrown into the sewer. You can no longer use it for anything that is supposed to come off as positive. It's been given a completely negative definition by I don't even know who, people on the internet, people who talk about it in passing. Every time you hear the word anarchy, it's used as everything descends into anarchy and chaos, and there's people fighting in the streets and starving. That's not what it's about. It's
been
an
like
ideology
that since I've ever, can remember. And, I'm not that old. So I don't know what, if, say I asked my mother, what did people, how did people consider it back during her day? I mean, I don't know. But ever since I can remember, it was always construed that way, that nobody ever came out and said, well, it means without rulers, essentially, and that it's not about, it's without rulers, not without rules, and it's not about total chaos and attacking people and, just having they even had that movie, the Purge Anarchy, where I don't know if you've seen it, but the premise of it is that for 24 hours you can do whatever you want. And what people end up doing, of course, it's trying to make a statement about the nature of people, how they need government to control them, because if not, they're really just savages and animals and all that shit, which is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, no, that's not what anarchy is. I mean,
right.
It is basically, essentially, no rulers. You're not trying to constrain natural life processes into these preformed notions that you have, which are the rules or laws that people like to try to enforce on others. And there's just no place for that in the natural order of the world. You don't see animals running around punishing each other when oh, you took a portion of my my income and gave it to this other animal. That's great. I think we should do that to everybody. And if you don't decide to give up your portion of food to this helpless creature, then we're just gonna kill you. No other race does that. We're the only ones. And it doesn't make sense because you can't push your ideas onto other people that don't want to abide by them. They will just continuously fight it. And to think that people naturally descend into chaos and disorder without rules, that is completely untrue. Otherwise, we never would have advanced to the point in life that we're at. I mean, yes, in history there have been many years and years of like brutal wars and bloodshed and like terrible dictators and a lot of things that should never be repeated from history. But the majority of humans' existence was us fighting for our lives and learning to develop our skills with like tool making and working with nature instead of against it.
And the wheel.
Yeah, and the wheel. And just discovering all of these things about the universe and about ourselves and building on that. And to try and take that away or destroy it, that's where the laws and the governing comes in. It's upsetting the natural balance of existence.
I didn't have my mic turned up there. It's
just not natural to me, I think, to anybody. I don't think it's natural to try to enforce ideologies onto people, and I think that where that originated from was just some smart person at one point said, hey, I could say something that isn't true and maybe convince other people of it, and then they'll listen to me because I have knowledge that they don't.
Yeah, I don't know how.
And then there's like religion
developed
and
that, but
government that came out of that.
But not to interrupt, but I do have a quick call, and I know you have to leave soon, but she can only call in real quick. Our new host that's going to be debuting on Thursday, Vivian Fire, is on the phone. Vivian, can you hear me? Maybe she can't hear me. Jeez. Can you hear me now? We might be having an issue with the phones, which wouldn't be a surprise after the other issue that I had. Yeah, I don't think she can hear me. Vivian? Hello? Hello? Hello?
I can hear her.
You can hear her?
I could hear her, and you got really loud for a moment.
I don't know. Fuck. Yeah, we'll probably just have to, because she could only call in fast. You know what? My texts weren't working neither, so I don't know if it's something with my phone or what. So, we'll see if she tries to call back. Oh, she heard me, but I couldn't hear her. Okay, I'm gonna have to fix the fucking phone now. But I know you only got a few minutes left, so let's get to that, and maybe she can call back on her next break because she's actually at work, and I wanted her to call in, or maybe she can call in tomorrow, and I can get that fixed. I just wanted to kind of introduce her to the audience because she has to go back to work now, so maybe we can get her to call in tomorrow. But yeah, I don't know how that anarchist is libertarian. The word libertarian and anarchist, I think the way they ended up, how they did, is totally different. As you were, talking about anarchist, libertarian, I think, is a more of a recent thing that was done purposefully for a few reasons. I think one was, well, you can throw them in the bucket with the Republicans, so when they attack the Republicans, they can throw libertarians in there and, just lump them in and keep people away
it's a good
from
strategy.
Keep that away from the Libertarian Party, keep people away from the Libertarian Party.
I can't hear you now.
Oh, what the fuck happened here? Can you hear me now? I don't know what happened with... Let me unplug the phone. Okay. Can you hear me now? Or are you still having an issue? This fucking thing. How about now? Ever since they changed the thing. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can.
See, it's like lines are crossed or something. Because I just turned up what would be for the phone, not for your thing. And what about now?
No, I can still hear you. now.
Okay.
I don't know where you left off, but just to add to what you were saying a moment ago, I think it was a really good strategy, politically speaking, to lump Republicans and Libertarians together, because that means the Republicans can kind of pick up the somewhat independent voters, or the ones that are Republican but a little less political leaning. And also, that's something that like Democrats and people who like more power and money um, can demonize them for that. So it kind of works in both directions, I think. I don't know if Republicans dislike being called libertarian, but I think whoever's going against them could certainly use that word as an insult, because it's seen that way by the public in large.
Yeah, that they could say, well, they're not a real conservative, they're a libertarian, or, depending on who are the ones that are, who the audience is or what they're trying to accomplish in that situation. So it definitely can be used to bring people down, but at the same time, they can try to use it to appeal to certain people, but not in the way that it really is. Because as far as I understand, real libertarians do not believe in government. And I don't know how they could. If you look at the explanation of libertarianism, or the definition, how you could believe in government and be a libertarian. And I think the main difference between an anarchist and a libertarian is, at least with the anarchists that I know, they all seem to be somewhat lean towards socialism.
That's weird. I thought libertarians existed solely to reduce the power of the government and to reduce their influence. I mean, I know a few people that are sort of socialist, but they're more so that way because they think, I don't know, that it would just be more fair if, the corruption would end and all of the rich politicians and people running these crony capitalist corporations would kind of like give up their money and share it with everyone else because it kind of belongs to the people. But I don't know any like straight out complete socialists.
Well, in a sense that the way it was explained, and I know you got to go in a minute, was they don't want the government involved. That the majority of anarchists are more socialists that don't want the government involved. They want to develop their own socialist communities, voluntary socialist communities. So say you get together with whatever amount of people and start your own community, and you agree to be there, and you can leave if you want to. So it's not forced. See, I to me, that would never work unless you had a small, very small, dedicated amount of people. Because what's going to happen is some people are going to be doing all the work and some people are going to be doing nothing.
Right. It would never work because true socialists don't understand the value inherent in like time and money. And that's really what you're dealing with when it comes down to socialism.
So their view is everything being, and this is what I got from one left, I guess he calls himself a left anarchist or just an anarchist, but he's definitely a left-leaning anarchist, that everything would be co-ops, that if you worked for a company, you'd own part of it, which to me kind of doesn't make sense in how you divide up everything. And the people that took the initiative to start a company or had the idea or whatever, it's, you know, I don't really agree with, not that I don't really agree with that. I don't agree with that. I agree if that's what the people want to do. I mean, if you want to start a company and pay everybody the same amount of money and everybody owns a portion, then that's fine. But it's like the analogy I had given when I talked about it with them was like, okay, so I have, say I build up my radio station, I build it from nothing. You know, yeah, I have help from some people like, you know, people like you that co-host and help me and whatever. And I would definitely, if you or other people were to come back and be part of the station, I'd probably pay you more than I would, you know, because I would remember, or give you an extra bonus or something, you know, to make up for all that time or something like that. But I don't know that I would say, oh, well, you know, everybody should be part owner of the station that, you know, I put all this work into, you know, and I'm just using that as an example. So in the scenario that was described to me, it was that everything would be a co-op and there would be no need to have things that weren't. And if they weren't co-ops, they would essentially protest them and kind of push them out of business, which seems like coercion to an extent. So that's where some of the anarchists that I hear about, I don't agree with. But then you have people that call themselves anarchists that because they just don't believe in government, not because they believe in any type of socialism. So that's where you have, even within, you already have the difference of the total chaos, but even within that, you have right and left-leaning anarchists as well. So you have that part of it also. So I know you got to go. So I will let you go. I really appreciate you taking the time to come visit us, and hopefully you will again. I know you're really busy with the preparing for Liberty Forum and everything. So maybe it might be after that, and maybe you can join the show, and we can put something together with Shire Dude and you, and interview you guys about it and your experience, and play some of the audio of the skits that you did, and maybe do something like that.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Well, thank you for welcoming me back onto the show.
Well, you're always welcome to, you know, if you're especially now on Tuesdays, I don't have anybody usually, so and even days that I do, if you're bored and you feel like calling in, or you're like, hey, I feel like being on the radio tonight, don't hesitate to call. I could always.
Yeah, sure.
We always have room for you on the show, so don't worry about that.
Well, that's great. I mean, I really appreciate it. My hands are a little full with the radio show I'm doing now, but I mean, I will definitely try.
But just, I'm just saying, if you're always welcome, and if, you're just like, hey, well, tonight I really don't have much to do. Dave's doing a show. Maybe I'll see if I can, come on or whatever. And,
yeah, definitely.
You're always welcome. So even if I already have a co-host for that night, you could always join us. So it's,
all right.
So just keep that in mind. So, and then your new show, it's on 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific on Friday on LRN.
Yep. We also have our own website. It's theanarchist.com. So you can listen to all the archives there, or you can listen in on Friday nights live.
I haven't seen the most recent episode posted yet. I don't know. I know you cut out the commercial, so I don't know if you've gotten to it yet. But
yeah, I think I posted it yesterday. It was the 5th episode.
Maybe I just missed it because I had listened up to the 4th. So maybe I'll listen to that tomorrow while I'm at work.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate the feedback that you've been giving me, and I hope that more people will send in feedback to our actual email, which is just theanarchics@gmail.com. But yeah, I think if the feedback that you've been giving me could be seen by my co-host, then maybe I don't know, maybe we'd have a change of plans.
Maybe you can take that anonymously to your co-host, because I don't want them mad at me or anything. I'm just being...
Oh, sure.
It's nothing personal. It's just listening as a fan. And of course, I think you're doing a very good job as a host. I know you did some of that on ALP anyway. You guys kind of switched off, but now you're like the main host, and I think you're doing a really good job as a host.
Thank you.
At least as much as you can with the other things that are going on around you. So we'll just put it that way. But you're doing the best you can.
It's not easy
based on the circumstances. And I'll definitely get you. There's that story that as many people that want to talk about it. I think it's an important story. So as soon as it might not be for like a month or so, but as soon as I get it together about the woman that is facing, her and her husband, 5 to 20 years in felonies just because her son broke his leg, and they didn't do anything. Like, they didn't break it. He fell and broke his leg. So that's where we're going with CPS. They called, and because he broke his leg, they called CPS and the police. So wow. Just based on the fact that he broke his leg. So that's the society we're in right now. So
I can't wait to read the article that you write. But thanks for having me on, and I will try to call in sometime soon again.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Take care. So that was Ellen Ball. Be sure to check out her show on LRN at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific, LRN.FM. And I didn't get to ask her if they have the cam going or not. I would assume they do. So if you go to LRN.com, you could probably see them broadcasting through the cam, but they might not because they're not posting anything on YouTube. So either way, you can at least listen to the show, and then you can listen to the archives. You can get that information. They have a Facebook page, Anarchist. So I think it's just facebook.com/Anarchist. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will talk more about why I'm done with labels. At least I'm done with labels for myself. And I will try to, in general, get away from labels, except for labels on items that you buy at the store, like the peanut butter label, or like I don't know why peanut butter came into my head, labels for whatever. And I'll make sure to figure out what the fuck is going on with the phone, because before the change with Spreaker, I didn't have any issues, and all of a sudden I'm having some issues. So I'm gonna really have to look at this tonight and see what's going on with this. So again, we'll be right back after this, and I hope
I'm a libertarian because I
Yes,
fucking love roads. Roads are awesome. They are actually one of the best ways to get from point A to point B, and yet...
That's not what I wanted to play because I have a clip with Adam Kokesh, but that was not the one I wanted to play, because he kind of goes through that like a bunch of times. But I'm trying to find the clips that I had downloaded earlier and where they're at. Okay. These are short clips, so we can play a few of these. So we'll be right back after this.
We are here with
Marina and Kelly.
And I would just like to ask you guys, what is your personal definition of freedom?
It's a difficult question. I think it's like... It's the...
where I can walk around and do as I please if it does not constrain, if it doesn't go against anybody's personal agency or ability to live.
Okay, freedom, it has many components. Like, for instance, it has freedom of speech, freedom of the liberty to go in everywhere that you want, freedom to select your job and do whatever you want, respecting others people. That's, in general, my concept of freedom.
Be able to do what is right for you within the framework of society.
It's the right of make decisions and choose the way, which way do you want to live your life, I think. And that's it for me.
For me, it's to be able to do everything that you want, to be spontaneous. Freedom is that you can choose your way, the way you want to do the things.
Do you think freedom exists here in America?
I think so, yeah. Well, it exists in America. I think it's like a personal, it's difficult to explain because it's not the country doesn't take you out the freedom or not. It's like the freedom goes in the person, and I think so. I think
that they are
it's a really
I think so.
Open country.
Did you guys ever hear of the NDAA?
No.
What it is, it's an act where if you speak out against the government, or if they can, the government can label you a terrorist of any kind, they can put you away indefinitely. Did you guys ever hear about that?
No.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
My personal definition of freedom...
On a national scale.
Yeah. I would say probably the practical application of the golden rule.
And that would be?
Well, just treat others as you like to be treated. Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to make a candy outfit and be a street performer.
Okay, where were you the morning of 9/11?
I was at the doctor's office in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay. Did you make the costume yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. And is it out of real candy or is it?
Yeah. Got about 2 gallons of Nerds on.
Okay. What kind of candy is it?
Nerds.
What do you think about the drone program, the unmanned drones, bombing over Pakistan and Yemen and elsewhere?
I don't know. From what I've read, it's not really winning us big fans over there. And winning the people is essential in modern day warfare, winning over the people is pretty essential. And so I think it could be good, but I think that right now it's very much counterproductive.
Okay, and where do you stand on the issue of whether or not to subsidize birth control?
Oh, absolutely.
3 answers. Okay. Is it a democracy, an oligarchy, or a republic? Founded as?
I guess I haven't taken a government class recently, but
What's up, B?
Isn't it technically sort of a republic? I forget.
On paper, it's a republic, but
I would say that we're unfortunately a little bit somewhere in between because of the lack of campaign finance reform and the ability for corporations to essentially donate as much as they please. It's moved a little bit, unfortunately, towards oligarchy, as witnessed in the extreme disparity of income that we haven't seen since the 1920s. So I'd say it still is a democracy, but it has an unfortunate amount of oligarch influence.
We don't have any regulation at the Federal Reserve, for example. Are you familiar with the Federal Reserve System?
Yeah.
In what? And you expand?
It's an unelected body that makes pretty important decisions about loaning.
Candyman, thank you very much. Keep fighting the good fight, and yeah.
Cool. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Anarchy. What exactly is anarchy?
Freedom? Having... This is tough.
Freedom means to be waking up every day and having a choice. That's all.
I think freedom means being able to have the same opportunities as everyone else and being able to express your opinions, political, religious, all of your opinions.
Freedom, I would say, is being able to express yourself in any way that you want, really.
It's the opportunity to basically make your own choices.
To me, freedom means having your basic human rights and the liberty to freedom of speech.
Well, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Cuba. I came here when I was 7. So getting an education and just being able to do that is a big thing for me.
Freedom is when I can make the decisions I want to make without being influenced by others.
And being able to do what you think is the best for your life, being able to do those actions which define who you are. And
freedom is the choice to get involved.
Freedom is the power to make a difference. Freedom is having your voice heard.
I think a big part of what freedom means to me is being able to be a part of the government that makes the laws that I have to live with.
Freedom means having the ability and the right to choose.
Freedom is the right to vote.
Freedom is the right to vote.
Freedom is the right to vote.
Get your gun. Yo, it's a Summirize Showdown. Summirize showdown.
Nonpartisan liberty for all, and we are back. I'd like to again thank Ellen because it was last minute and she had something scheduled at, what would it be, 10:30 her time. So she was even willing to come on before that. And that's why I started a little early, so I could at least have her on for an hour, because I know she is busy, and it's always fun to have her on, especially when I don't have anybody else on as a co-host. But the rest of the week we will. Tomorrow we will be joined by Shire Dude. So no, sorry. Tomorrow we will. That's next week. Tomorrow we will be joined by Ken Shorgen. It threw me off because Ken was usually on Thursdays. We switched him to Wednesdays, but for this week he is going to be on Tuesday. So because Wednesday I have a Christmas party that I'm supposed to go to, although after a conversation during the break, I'm not so sure if I'm going now, but I'm supposed to go to a work Christmas party on Wednesday, and by the time I got back, I mean, I could do like the last hour, but I thought I'd just do a Monday instead. So Ken has nicely agreed to be on Tuesday instead, and to switch to Wednesdays going forward, which is great. Ken has always been very flexible when it comes to the time, so I thank him for that. And so he will be, for fans of Ken, and it looks like, I was looking at some of the episodes, and it looks like there are a lot of fans of Ken, which is good, because I think there's a lot of important information when he's on. But so he will be on this week, he will be on Tuesday, but going forward, he will be on every other Wednesday. So next Wednesday will be Shire Dude. The Wednesday after that will be Ken. Then he'll alternate with Shire Dude on Wednesdays. Then on Thursdays, every Thursday, Vivian, who just called in and something was up with the phone, will be on the whole show, co-hosting every Thursday. And she is a Las Vegas local, so she will join us live in the studio. And Tuesdays will, for now, just be me until I have a couple people that I've talked to. I'm unsure about their... One person just kind of has a different style that I don't know is compatible with mine. It's not that he's bad or anything. Actually, I think that when I saw the show that he used to do, that he was definitely the most talented one on the show. I didn't think that his partner had... I thought his partner was good as a producer. I'll leave it at that. But I thought he was talented, but more raw talent, that he needed to work on some things, just like I need to work on some things as well. But that he did have some talent and could turn it into something. It's just that idea of a show is more confrontational. Like, as we were talking about earlier, I had brought up how I had talked to my new co-host and how I'm totally not about confrontation on the show. It's about promoting those ideas and having a forum, having a way to get those ideas out there and to explain them. And then to have a co-host on to give their opinion and shore up some of those things that I miss as well. So, like, for example, I had mentioned times when Ellen was on and, we agreed on the subject, but she had brought up points that I didn't, that I think needed to be brought up that I didn't even think of, or maybe I never thought of them and she had brought them up and then I had totally agreed with those points. So it's good to get the perspective of, even when you agree with somebody, how they come to that conclusion and make sure we get all of that out there. And I wanted to have at least one night with a female co-host for that reason as well. And maybe feminists will get mad about this too, but to get a female perspective along with my perspective. So, I had that with Ellen and I thought we developed a pretty good back and forth. So hopefully everything will go well with Vivian. She doesn't have the experience that Ellen has, but I think that she definitely has the dedication and believes in all those ideas, and really, as long as she puts her all into it, I think she'll be pretty good. I think eventually she'll be really good, but I think even to start out with, there are things that you're not going to learn until you actually do it. So it's something that you need to just do it and go out and perform and learn from your mistakes and whatnot. But I definitely think there is a lot of promise there, and I have a feeling that she'll do a great job. So we'll see how it goes, but that's, I have a really good feeling that it's going to go well and people are going to enjoy her on the show, and that hopefully she stays for a long time, that it's not a, because I talked to her about too, if of course she doesn't like it, not that she doesn't like it because of anything to do with me. She just doesn't like being on the radio, or which I don't think this is going to happen, but that it's fine, that she could always leave and there's no problem there. But I don't think that will be the case. I think that it will give her a opportunity to voice those opinions that she has and to get those out there, just like why I started doing it and what I'm doing. So I'm really excited of her starting, and I think she'll be a great addition to the team. So now we have Wednesday and Thursday at least where we have somebody on both of those days. And Thomas Woody has not left the show. And I don't want to get too much into it because it's his personal stuff, but he's just have had a lot of personal stuff going on. So it's not a matter of him not wanting to do the show anymore. It's just with what's going on with him, it's hard for him to do the show. We'll just leave it at that. So at some point, hopefully he will come back, and we had planned for him to even do his own show on the weekend, to record him doing his own show. So hopefully at some point in the future that will come to fruition. But I'm not giving up on him, and he hasn't quit, and he's someone who was always really dedicated to the show. So, but there's certain things that are more important, you know, when it comes to family issues and things like that. So I hope he's doing well, and I definitely wish him well and hope to have him come back soon. And then when he comes back, then maybe we can have him do Tuesdays. And as I had mentioned, if Ellen ever wants to come back and even do her own show, because I know one of the reasons why Ellen had left, the biggest reason, is she wanted to host her own show, and she got an offer from a much bigger station that I had talked a little about on Thursday, and I think maybe I was a little hard on some people. Well, really just Ian and LRN, not really the people at our LRN, because I have nothing against them. So it's something I think I was just venting about, and maybe I should have thought more about it before I did, because it's not, I don't know that it was really that positive. Where on the show, again, I mean, the point of the show is to promote the ideas of freedom and liberty. It's not to complain about other radio stations or program managers or whatever. Now, I do think, though, the one point I made that I think is important is that, and I've made this before, but I could have done it in a more positive way, is that we, and when I say we, and this is kind of, I'm getting into the labels again, but for people that believe in true freedom and liberty and have those beliefs that they want to live in a free society, they want to live in a society where they can do what they want without the government passing ridiculous laws, as long as they don't hurt anybody else, that we don't have the, I guess, quality of programming that all of these other ideologies have, or all of these other ideas have. I don't even like calling it really an ideology, because to me it's just the truth. It's about how people should live, because it's not telling you how to live. It's telling you, choose how you want to live, as long as you don't hurt anybody. That's the difference between what I believe and what conservatives and progressives and religious people and all of this shit. The difference is that you can still be whatever you want to be and practice whatever you want to practice, as long as you're not hurting anybody else directly. You just can't force everybody else to fucking do it. Just do it. That's the difference. If you want to be a conservative, be a fucking conservative. If you want to be a progressive, be a progressive. If you want to be religious, be religious. But the problem is that not always in religion, but in these conservatives and progressives, and these are labels, yes, but politicians, which I guess is another label, but it's an actual thing, they want people to live by their values. I don't want to force anybody to live by my values or to live how I want to live. You can live any way you want as long as you're not forcing anything on anybody else and not directly hurting anybody else. So that's the difference between people like me and them, is that they want to force their shit at the barrel of a gun on everybody else. And the fact that the majority of people don't realize that is surprising, because all I'm saying is, hey, you be free to live how you want. Not you have to live this way. I'm not saying that all these laws should be passed that say you have to do drugs or you have to go to prostitutes or you have to. And I personally don't necessarily agree with those things anyway for myself. It's just the fact that if somebody wants to do that, they have the right to do that. So, I mean, really, again, is what I'm talking about isn't even an ideology itself. It's just about the truth. It's just the reality of how things are. And unfortunately, because of things like government schools and the indoctrination that goes on and the things that happen on TV and all of this other stuff, because of that, there's not as many people as I wish there was. Now, there may be a lot more than I even think there is. It's just we just don't know about them because they're too scared to voice their opinions about it. But you talk to a lot of people and bring up the police per se, and a lot of people have bad stories about the police. Now, that doesn't mean they automatically go to that they also believe that they should be able to do whatever they want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, or that they believe in things like self-ownership. But at least it's a start if they're seeing what the police are doing. So anyway, back to our discussion on labels. And really labels that have to do specifically with freedom and liberty. Now, freedom and liberty are two of those labels in a sense. Now, they're not a label. They're more of a definition and a interpretation because they're words that are used differently. But actually, before I get to that, let me go through the rest of the actual labels, and then let me get to those words and talk about those, because those are very distorted in terms of the real definitions of freedom and liberty, which I've read on the air before. So we talked about libertarians. Essentially, I mean, you have Republicans calling themselves libertarians. You have Republicans calling themselves libertarian leaning. Oh, but I'm a Republican, though, but I'm libertarian leaning. And I think that's more about getting votes than anything else. Who knows when it comes to politicians, what they really are. And what they would do just to get elected or get that power. And, who knows? And I am thinking of somebody specific that, took that whole, well, I'm not libertarian, but I'm a Republican, but I'm a libertarian leaning. I'm a Ron Paul Republican. Well, you should listen to some of the stuff that Ron Paul is saying now. Now, I don't know if they seem to have been almost a blind follower of Ron Paul, which I think it's bad to blindly follow anybody. You take the things you agree with from that person and you can incorporate that into your beliefs, but to just blindly follow somebody, and that's kind of what religion is in a sense, is not at least I don't consider that a positive thing, to just blindly follow, especially a politician. I mean, no disrespect to Ron Paul. I think he's done a lot of great things, but I don't worship Ron Paul or, have a poster of Ron Paul in my bedroom or something. I respect a lot of the things that he did. I don't agree with him on everything. I agree with him on some things. And I think he seems to be moving more towards my views, I think, than he had before. So, but I mean, at this point, he's really just a talking head and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, or an analyst or somebody to go to on a TV show, or somebody. I mean, he's not a politician anymore. So, which I think is a positive thing. And I mean, he is doing other things. I know he has a website, and he was trying to do something with school curriculum, the Ron Paul online school or something like that. So he's out there trying to do positive things. So that's good. And I do respect him, but I wouldn't just follow every word he says because, he's Ron Paul and, like a mindless, idiot. But we talked about libertarians, pretty much talked about anarchists. And with anarchists, as I said, you got a couple things going on there. You have the left and right anarchists, but then you also have the general public's view of anarchy being essentially total chaos, which it is not. It just means without rulers. It doesn't mean without rules. And to most people, it means without government. However, the anarchists that I'm familiar with are also socialists. They're not forced socialists, but in a way they are via coercion. Because if what I was told is true, that they want everything to be a co-op, it would be something where if a business opened that wasn't a co-op, they'd all get together to shut it down. So, yes, that's the free market at work, but there's a difference when you have this big, huge power structure, which was the whole reason that I guess they are for co-ops, and you're going to try to shut something down because they're not like you. That's not freedom to me. There's a difference between boycotting somebody because they discriminate against people or they treat people wrong compared to, well, this business is actually owned by one person that started it up compared to a co-op. And that's the understanding that I got. So if I'm wrong on that, of course, there's a bunch of ways to contact me, and I'm not sure the phone is working, but you can definitely Skype in at Nonpartisan Liberty for All. And you should be able to, I think I get the phone issue at 702-470-7664. If you feel that I'm misrepresenting leftist anarchy, or really I think what anarchy kind of is to begin with. I think people started using it as, right anarchy or and anarcho-capitalists, but I think that's a relatively new thing. And then from what I understood, libertarians were right anarchists, essentially, or anarchists that actually believed in the free market and not co-ops. But, I could be wrong about that. Another term that's used a lot, and I've even used this before, so I'm guilty of it as well, is the liberty community. And what really is the liberty community? I mean, there's all these people that say they stand for freedom and liberty, and we'll get to that in a minute, because the freedom and liberty are very misrepresented in the Republican and conservative, I don't know if you'd call it a conservative party, but the conservative Republicans, because I guess most conservatives are Republicans, it's very misrepresented there. So maybe we'll get back to the liberty community when I get into those definitions, because it will make more sense there than just talking about it without getting into the definitions of freedom and liberty. So one of the few terms that I think for the most part hasn't been corrupted yet is voluntarist, which basically means doing everything based on voluntary relationships. So instead of being forced to do business with the government by them taking your taxes and then them supposedly giving something to you for your taxes. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that they're actually giving you something. They may not be giving you anything. But when it comes down to it, and the whole side of let me get back to that. When it comes down to it, it's something that they haven't had a chance to really corrupt yet. I don't know that they know that much about it or what. And as things I think progress, that's probably going to be something that they will attack as well. So I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be right back after this.
Certain polls have shown that roughly 10% of the American population self-identifies as libertarian. When asked more specific questions, such as if one is fiscally conservative and socially liberal, that number has reached as high as 40%. The main problem is that most Americans don't know what libertarianism is, or they identify the label as just another word for conservative and dismiss the ideology. Just like every other ideology, libertarianism has many different strains and there's no one-size-fits-all philosophy. The same goes for any label. President Obama is certainly a different kind of liberal, as Congressman Dennis Kucinich or Ralph Nader, and Governor Mitt Romney is certainly a different kind of conservative as Congressman Ron Paul. Here, I will explain what I believe are the 6 major kinds of libertarianism and how we can unite them. First, the most well-known style of libertarianism today is defined by the Tea Party movement. Many Tea Partiers are conservatives and some are libertarians, but all seem to follow in the footsteps of former Republicans. Tea Party-style libertarianism was popularized by Glenn Beck and Michelle Bachmann, who sometimes call themselves libertarian, but tend to give libertarians a bad name because of how unpopular they are with liberal audiences. Before the Tea Party movement, this style of libertarianism really started with radio talk show host Neil Bortz. It came about when conservatives became disgusted with Bush-era domestic policy and was highly critical of the growth of government under Republicans. Many gave up the Republican moniker in hopes of joining a political movement that hasn't been completely tainted. However, they still generally favor military occupations and war and seem to be less critical of privacy rights. You will hear them defend the Patriot Act, Guantanamo Bay, enhanced interrogation, and other non-libertarian legislation. And they also tend to have a sense of national greatness. However, while they are the farthest from pure libertarianism, many people in the Tea Party movement read libertarian economists like Hayek and Mises. So there is a lot of hope that over time, many of these people can be converted over from their conservative leanings. The paleo-conservatives are lesser known than the Tea Party style, and many actually attend Tea Party events. But despite the conservative name, they are much more libertarian than their Tea Party counterparts. Paleo-conservatives are actually descended of traditional conservatism espoused by former Senators Robert Taft and Barry Goldwater. Today's most reputable paleos are Joe Scarborough and Pat Buchanan, and the magazine The American Conservative. Like Tea Partiers, they are generally pro-life and favor strong borders, which puts them at odds with pure libertarians. However, unlike Tea Partiers, paleos tend to take a federalist position on controversial social issues and prefer to have the states decide. In addition, they also tend to be highly critical of the American empire and favor a more non-interventionist foreign policy. This form of conservatism has almost completely dissipated under the Bush years, but appears to be making a comeback with the rise of Ron Paul. Once again, many in the Tea Party are slowly moving towards the paleo position, but is still a minority in the conservative movement. The libertarian is a term that was recently used to describe the fusion of liberals and libertarians in fighting against bad Bush-era policies. In truth, most libertarians wouldn't consider themselves libertarians at all, but their version of liberalism is much different than what is espoused by the Democratic establishment. While economically these liberals will not reconcile with libertarians, there are many issues that we come to agreement with, and when alliances are formed, sometimes people cross over. The first major example would be Mario Savio, who is known for his great speeches in the 60s. Today's champions include Ralph Nader, Naomi Wolf, and Glenn Greenwald. While these liberals believe in government and taxes, they do not favor debt and believe in spending within the means of government income. Like other libertarians, they are highly critical of the Federal Reserve and strong advocates of privacy rights, non-intervention, and having the government stay out of the lives of personal habits. Cosmotarians are libertarians who try to appeal more to those on the left than those on the right by having a major balance of fiscal conservatism and social liberalism. The Koch brothers are the main funders of this style of libertarianism, but it is best espoused by Reason, the Cato Institute, John Stossel, and politicians like Governor Gary Johnson. They hold many views that combine paleo-conservatives and libertarians, as they favor reducing the size of all governments, want to protect economic and personal liberty, and favor a non-interventionist foreign policy. The catch is that they try to whitewash their views to make it seem less extreme to appeal to a larger audience, thus compromising some principles because they don't want to sound like radicals. Many pure libertarians find cosmotarians as sellouts, as exemplified by the cosmotarian belief that marijuana should be legalized and taxed, whereas pure libertarians want to eliminate taxes, not create new ones. Classical liberals are, in my opinion, the purest form of libertarianism. The reason why they are called classical liberals is because liberal was once defined the same way libertarians are today. Before the progressive era twisted its meaning into an almost socialist ideology, the most well-known classical liberals were President Thomas Jefferson and Grover Cleveland, but the philosophers of this ideology include Adam Smith, Frederick Bastiat, John Locke, and the Austrian economists Tom Woods and Peter Schiff. Their views are basically a much more radical version of cosmotarians, but their ideology comes from a philosophy of property rights and the non-aggression principle, and they apply that principle to their politics across the board. Classical liberals generally believe only in small, local governments, one that can be held accountable to the people and is served merely to administer a court system and defense. Lastly are the voluntarianists, or sometimes called anarchists. Unlike the perception that an anarchist would be like a Somalian pirate or that of the Unabomber, these individuals take the non-aggression principle and apply it so severely that they believe a government should not exist at all. Known voluntarianists include Stefan Molyneux, Adam Kokesh, and the hosts from Free Talk Live. They criticize all other branches of libertarians as belonging to a group that they like to dub minarchists, which is the belief that government is bad, except a little government must be necessary and tolerated. The voluntarianist believes that the government is not necessary, and all actions can occur peacefully in a truly free, voluntary society that emphasizes the value of a free market. Many anarchists are still fond of the classical liberal philosophers, but believe that the smallest governments have always turned into the biggest governments, and thus a small government can never be maintained as such. Michael Badnarik, who is the former 2004 Libertarian presidential candidate, came to a Libertarian Party convention in 2010 to criticize them for agreeing on 95% of the issues, but argue 95% of the time on the 5% that they disagree on. This is why the Libertarian Party can never reach 1%, despite the fact that at least 10% of the American population call themselves libertarian. The reason Ron Paul is so important is because he seems to unite almost all members of the 6 groups I've just described. By reading much of his writing and listening to many of his speeches, it is easy to see how and why. Philosophically, he appears to be a classical liberal, with voluntarianist instincts. Sometimes he sounds like he would favor abolishing the state altogether, but cannot say so as long as he remains in Congress. Much like historian Tom Woods, Ron Paul often advocates removing government involvement altogether in almost any issue. Politically, he knows this won't sell to the Republican Party, of which he is a member of. So instead, he favors federalist and constitutionalist positions of merely letting the states decide, which is a strong paleo-conservative view. Instead of tackling the issue of drugs or marriage, paleos simply want to pass the responsibility to the states, whereas a classical liberal would have individual rights trumping state rights and would look to have no government involvement at all in the issue. To them, the Constitution is not libertarian enough. So Ron Paul may very well believe that ending all government services is a good idea, but advocates a paleo-conservative position in Congress because it doesn't compromise the way he votes. He still votes no on all unconstitutional legislation. In addition, he isn't afraid to take controversial stands on issues such as marriage and drugs, to the dismay of most modern-day conservatives, and liberals praise him for his stand against popular conservative rhetoric. Ron Paul has mainstreamed libertarianism because he is the perfect conduit to bring together the various factions of libertarian Americans, because he applies his principles to his votes and to how he runs his congressional office, and how he seems to be willing to tell the truth no matter what the political price. He is the scourge of the status quo and the mainstream media, but to regular Americans, he speaks pure common sense and brings out the libertarian in all of us.
And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Libertarianism equals racism. In the box below, I'm going to link a video clip of Van Jones insinuating that libertarians are racists, or at the very least don't care about black people or brown people, as well as apparently gay people or people with tattoos and body piercings and stuff. I know that sounds pretty odd, but like I said, I'll link it below. Unfortunately, it's an all too common trend among many Democrats, many on the economic left, to accuse their detractors of racism. More often than not, this is really just intellectual cowardice on their part. It's a means for them to shut down debate and poison the well of any dissenting opinion. It's a way to say, hey, those people are evil, bigoted, racist. Don't listen to anything they have to say. Aside from being childish and manipulative, it's also very destructive to healthy debate. You know, a little backdrop. I grew up in a fairly conservative household in a fairly conservative part of my state, and naturally, I adopted a lot of the conservative philosophies of those around me. But as I grew up and became more critical, I became less and less conservative and more libertarian on a lot of issues. I mean, I was already a libertarian. Being conservative, I was already pretty libertarian on economic issues, but listening to more and more libertarian voices, I also became very libertarian on social issues as well. Not that I reject conservative pretensions or notions of morality, or conservative notions of family values and that. I don't reject those things. I just don't think it's the proper role of a secular government to sort of socially engineer those things. But anyway, I mean, as a conservative, it's just commonplace whenever I'd engage in these political discussions or debates online or elsewhere that the left loves to throw around the charges of racism. You'd be talking about something that doesn't have anything to do with racism, but somehow they find a way to work it in and accuse their detractors of being racist. So I shouldn't be terribly surprised that as libertarianism has begun to grow, I believe, in this country and develop a little bit, with Ron Paul and with other libertarian-minded people gaining audiences and influence, the left has begun to see libertarianism as a threat, just as they saw conservatism as a threat, and they respond to it the very same way. In a lot of cases, just accusing libertarians now of being racist, not unlike the conservatives. The way the left often misplays the race card would be almost comical if it wasn't for the fact that it disrupts healthy debate. So basically what Van Jones is saying in the video clip, we don't care about brown people, is what Van Jones is trying to say, because we value liberty. And somehow that works into us not caring about brown people. Now, those on the left love to think that they're so high and mighty and that they care so much about poor minorities and that. But what have their policies really done for these communities? It's been, like 40, 50 years since LBJ started the Great Society and the War on Poverty? And has it really lifted more people out of poverty? Has it really addressed the underlying causes of poverty? I mean, if you look at places that have been governed by progressive leftists for decades, they're some of the poorest, most segregated communities in the country. If you look at Detroit or inner city Chicago, D.C., places like Milwaukee, these places don't seem to be getting any better. In some cases, they're getting worse. However, they do tend to lead to dependency, and dependency consolidates control. And I have no doubt that there aren't many honest Democrats out there that really do care about helping minorities. Maybe their heart's in the right place. Maybe they're just, policy-wise, they're just misguided. But I also have no doubt that there's other people under that banner that are just there for themselves. They're just there for control. They've made the calculation that they'd rather reign over hell than serve in heaven. And making people dependent on a bunch of government programs and handouts has been a tried and true method of controlling people since, back in Roman times. When Juvenal wrote about, the Roman concept of bread and circuses, basically to sort of consolidate his power with the masses, Caesar would throw out petty handouts to the poor. He wasn't the least bit concerned about the long-term well-being of those people, and he wasn't the least bit concerned about their freedom. He was concerned about preserving his dictatorship and his control over those people, so he'd throw out gifts out of the public trough, similar to the way you throw table scraps to your dog. And if you have that type of relationship with people, the last thing you want is for them to find a way out of their grinding poverty. Because if they do, then you can no longer buy them off with table scraps. If they become more educated, if they become more independent, if they learn to take care of themselves, then they're going to start to question your rule and resent your dictatorship over them. So the key to successful despotism is to give your subjects just enough to keep them eating out of your hand, but not enough to learn to eat by their own hand. As a libertarian, of course, I think that's demeaning. So as a libertarian myself, who apparently doesn't care about brown people, nothing would give me more satisfaction to see the people, see the poor people in the inner cities learn to climb out of their poverty, to learn to take charge of their own lives, to learn to correct the mistakes that keep them in this generational grinding poverty. And as a libertarian,
promoting the ideas of true freedom and liberty, nonpartisan liberty for all radio with Dave Bourne.
Nonpartisan liberty for all. My throat's all fucked up. So this is something that is totally gonna fuck up. It's not something that I wanted to like get in the way of my show, but obviously people are going out telling lies and talking a lot of shit that isn't true. So I'm forced to be put in a situation where I have to talk about it and address it, and I don't want to. But I will, because this is getting ridiculous. So there was a show that I had on that was called like Revolution, Anarchist, some shit. It was the only other original show that I had on. So I had asked, Kelly Patterson had been on my shows a bunch of times and had co-hosted, and Tasha Heath, who was an activist, who I don't know how she had time to, it seemed like, I don't know if she had a job or not, but whatever, that she was always at the meetings and doing all this stuff and whatever. So she, for about, it seemed like a year, it seemed like all of a sudden that, and maybe it's because I wasn't attending their events, because once I started my radio show, that's all I was doing. And this is the only time I'm going to talk about this. And anybody who wants to talk shit on Facebook or unfriend me, I don't really give a fuck. I don't know most of you people. A lot of it was networking, but a lot of you are, of course, going to believe some psycho. But whatever. I've lived here fucking 15 years, and to have I didn't know this girl was this fucking nuts, but I guess she is. So anyway, I did this show. I beforehand got, like, she would always like blow me off and sometimes make comments when I asked her to come on the show. So I even told my fiance, I was like, Tasha doesn't seem like she likes me that much anymore. Like, as a friend, not like anything else. So and before now, I haven't said any names about it. I responded to her text on Thursday because I got it during the show, and I still didn't mention her name. Even the post that I made, which is the only thing I've done, where I called her a troll, meaning like she looks like a troll, which was in delayed response to what she said to me. And it was just a post that no one could even see anyway. But so she, I've heard her so many times talk shit about people, whether it's this person or that person and whatever. That's what she does. She gossips and talks shit about people. So I had wanted to do a network, and I wanted people to do something about Las Vegas, that knew something about Las Vegas. And both Kelly and Tasha were activists in Las Vegas that were involved in everything. They knew a lot about what went on. So I thought, hey, they would probably be the perfect people to be on the show because they're, connected to what's going on. And my show is more about, the whole country as a whole and not to focus on Las Vegas. So, but being that it was my idea and it is my station, there were still certain things that I wanted to have a little control of, but I told them, 99% of it, you can do what you want. Now, I think some things were misinterpreted just by telling her something. She automatically jumps to conclusions like there was an issue where she had posted something on one of the pages. I gave them access to the pages. So I have a bunch of Facebook pages related to the show, and I gave them access to it. And she posted something, which was fine. It related to the show, but it just made me think like, okay, I want to let you guys know that these are what these pages are for, just for future reference. But, of course, right away, I got a text from her like, oh, forget it then. I just won't post on it. Like she was mad. There were things like that. And just, I didn't feel like, and I thought it was a mistake beforehand. And obviously it was a huge mistake. But I just didn't want to work with her. And I wanted to leave it at that. I didn't want to leave it on bad terms, although I was mad when I texted her after the show. I wasn't mean about it. So she asked me to come on the show. And I think I have the clip somewhere. I might have deleted all their shows, but I might have the clip somewhere where I could play it. So obviously, I didn't want to come on their show. They weren't prepared where she's like, well, let's just do an hour. And you don't do that. If you're doing a radio show, I know you don't want to take it seriously because, it's my show and I don't get that many listeners and however you want to call it, whatever you want to say about it and all that shit. But to me, I take it seriously. And if people are going to be on it, I expect them to be professional or don't be on it. I don't really give a fuck. She claims I begged her to be on it. I actually, prior to that, I asked her all the time to come on it. But I didn't beg her to come on it this time. I just asked. And I thought she was going to say no anyway. So she happened to say yes. So from there, we went through things. I told them things based on my experience. It doesn't mean I'm an expert on the show because I'm not, or on the show, in radio because I'm not. But as you do it, and I've only been doing it a year and a half, as you do it, you learn things. And I've talked a lot with Mark Edge from Free Talk Live and learned a lot of stuff from him. So basically, I know the role of what the host role is and what the co-host role is and all of that and how that fits together. And, I thought that maybe because of her speaking at different things and being on the radio before, and she kind of has a big mouth, obviously, that she could be a good host if she worked on it. If she took it seriously, put the time in, and actually worked on it. And Kelly had co-hosted my show a bunch of times, so I know he could handle that part of it. He was kind of monotone and quiet at times, but he was good enough where, he had things to add and and I knew that he would be fine in that role. But I didn't know about if he was in the host role because he's more laid back. So essentially, we started the show. I noticed by the second show, she made another claim that I told them they couldn't do something, that they wanted to do the Common Core stuff, but I said they couldn't do it. And I, with an attitude from her, this was in a text though, but I would construe it that way. And I had said that, I've never said you can't do it. I said you guys should probably wait to get some more information, because I thought with what they have done in the past and the people that they know, that this could be a really important show. This could be something that they break stories, that they get all this information out there, that they're able to do that. And they, she kept kind of getting her attitude here and there and whatever. I tried to communicate it as, positive as possible, that the show's important to me, but on the other side, hey, it's your show. I don't think I had ever given them an attitude or told them, I told them how it was, that, 99% of the stuff, is yours, or, what do you want me to do, or what do you not want me to do? Do you guys just want to come in here and do a show with everything all laid out, or not? Do you want to, actually do it? And if you want to do it, then, do it. Don't say I'm going to do this and not do this. So anyway, it was basically something that, to me, it was a mistake in asking her, because even for, I'd say, at least a year, her attitude towards me, I didn't like it. I thought that, but then I'd question myself, like, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just, I'm just over, analyzing things. Because before that, she was a lot nicer to me. So, and I hadn't done anything to her. The only thing I would think of is, well, you didn't go to this thing, or you didn't go to that thing. I mean, she had a thing that she had put on herself, and I made sure I went, with candidates. It's not something I would go to, but I wanted to support her, so I went to that. But besides that, she was involved with all these conservatives and involved in campaigns like Cindy Lake's and all of that shit. And that's not stuff I want to be involved in. And I didn't fault her for being, I've said this a million times, whatever you want to do is what you want to do. I don't really give a fuck. I'm not going to put somebody down for what they do politically, or what they think is the best thing to do, or, whatever. Because every little bit helps no matter what you're doing. So, she wanted to do that. That's fine. I didn't want anything to do with that. I had my show and tried doing a radio show 3 nights a week. I was doing it 4 before that, and having a full-time job where, you have to work at least 40 hours a week. I'm on salary, and I'm in an office, and I'm thinking all day, and it's mentally draining. I know people that work with their hands or standing up will say, well, whatever, this is, more tiring. I'm not trying to compare my job to other people's. I'm just telling them how mine is and how it is mentally draining. It really is. And then I do the show. And I do the show. It doesn't matter how many listeners I get. And I know I got comments on that. The most amount of listeners I ever had was one show I had 800. That was when Pete Eyre was on. I've had at least 15, maybe more shows with over 100 people. When you're doing a show every night, it's harder. I had some changes from when I moved over from Blog Talk Radio to Spreaker in the amount of listeners, but I just had a show with Ken a couple of weeks ago that's at like 90. So I know people want to say, whatever about, well, we got these amount of listens, and it's a popularity contest in a sense. It doesn't mean your show is good. It doesn't mean that, anything like that, to be honest. A lot of times there's a bunch of shows that aren't that good that these people are popular. They have a lot of friends. They go out and network. So the people, will listen to the shows and they'll say how great they are, when if you compared the show to an actual real radio show, it's pretty much shit. So anyway, I got on the air because they asked me to a bunch of times. I didn't want to do it. And pretty much whether I got on the air or not, this was probably going to be the last show I was going to do because I didn't want to work with her anymore. It just, and I wasn't even going to say anything bad about her. Just didn't want to work with her. Her attitude and how she acts, and I didn't want to work with her. I never said I hate you, I never want to talk to you again, or still, I don't know that we were really, I wouldn't consider her a friend. We were cool. We were acquaintances. So I wouldn't say that I, at the time, didn't want to have any, that to change. I just didn't want to do a show with her. So, of course, when I got on there, the first thing I talked about was my show. I mean, this is my network. I'm trying to promote my show. Just like I promoted their show on my show, I'm going to promote my show on their show. It's just how it works. So I did that, and I talked about a couple things, and then she came up and said, well, can you get to the point? Because she's claiming as a host, I told her to do that. Now, she's kind of using that in a way to benefit her. Yes, as a host, you need to control the show and whatever, but that's not why she did that. But fine, I respected that. The only thing I said, and this, I guess, made her go nuts, was that, well, and I said it laughing because I was joking. I didn't honestly know that it would offend her. And I ended up telling her this in a text after, so I'll get to that when we get to that point. So I had said that, well, you guys told me to come on because you needed time to fill, so I'm filling time. But if I can find the tape, I'll even post it. But I deleted most of their shit. And then I went into what they wanted me to talk about, and that was it. So after the show, she screams at me. I don't remember the exact words. She's like, you fucking this, and you fucking made us look bad, and fucking saying that. And she's literally screaming at me. So I didn't say anything to her. She left. I really am not a fan of drama, and it was whatever. So I texted her, look, I'm not, I don't know if I said I'm not mad, but I said that I'm sorry if I offended you with what I said on the show. That was not my intention. I didn't mean to fuck up the show in any way or make it look like you guys didn't know what you're doing or anything like that. And we could have cut it out anyway. She could have came to me and just, instead of, screaming, she could have came to me and actually talked about it, but whatever. But I said, if I offended you, that was not my intent. I don't know if I said sorry. I might have said sorry because I was pissed off because she has just fucking, basically yelled at me like I was a 2-year-old. So I had essentially from that said that, look, I'm sorry if I offended you with that. That wasn't my intention, whatever. I wasn't trying to make you look bad. I was even joking, but you can't talk to me like that. And I no longer want to do the show. If you guys want the files, I'd be happy to give them to you, but I don't want to do the show with you anymore. And that was it. And I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything on the air. I just posted that the show's no longer on the air. I didn't say why. I didn't say anything bad about her. I didn't say nothing. So then about, I don't know, because I had heard she was talking shit about me, and along with that and her, yelling at me, and I had never responded to her screaming at me, I had posted, and I'll read the post, and it's still there. And now she's getting people to comment on it. That's why I'm commenting. She's going to tell people, oh, this is what he said about me. Now, it wasn't even all aimed at her, actually. Just the last part. It was actually aimed at other people. But for any of the people that want to badmouth me all the time, I put into my show, I react to them treating me bad. Wait. For any of the people that want to badmouth me after all the time I put into my show, because I react to them treating me badly instead of just being somebody's bitch and doing nothing, because this has to do with something else. I said fuck them, and that has to do with something else, and they know who they are. I try to be reasonable, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit there and take people's insults and other shit and act like everything is okay. And that was from her yelling at me and, telling whatever to, talking shit. And so, again, fuck them, especially a certain crazy girl that looks like a fucking troll from Middle Earth. Maybe you should go back there and save Middle Earth. Now, I admit that was mean, but she was no longer my friend no more. She unfriended me right after that. So I know she wouldn't see it. I didn't put her name on it. And even most of her friends didn't even realize it was her, because they had even commented like on it. And that was the whole thing, that I just needed to get that out there after what she did to me, where she was totally unreasonable and she was pretty much, I think the way she handled it was really fucked up. Now, you could say me texting her instead of calling her. I was just done at that point. I didn't want to talk to her about the show anymore. I was just kind of done. It didn't mean I was never going to talk to her again. I was just like, look, I'm done, and I'm sending it by text, and that's it. So I posted that. Nobody said anything. So this fucking douchebag, Sean Gruber, who moved to New Hampshire recently, who I was trying to tell Sean what had happened, and I was about to go on the air on Thursday. So I said, well, I'll tell you after the show, I'll call you. Will you be up? Because I was going to explain to him what happened. Now, he went and told Tasha, I don't know what he told her. He said something about a troll, and I guess they took that as that she doesn't do enough for Liberty or something like that. And that's obviously not what I meant. And so she had not only texted me, but sent a message to Facebook while I was doing the show that said, and I'll be posting just this part of the show. Let me see. And it's unfortunate that I even have to do this, to be honest, that she couldn't have been more mature about this whole situation. But, so she sends a thing, stop talking, keep talking shit, you pilled out motherfucker, how many shows you have, and it's just a Dave show, and people leave because of you. I kept my mouth shut till you talk shit. Now I won't be so quiet and nice. Now, Tasha doesn't even really know me that well, first of all. I've probably been around her 10, 15 times at the most. So it's not like we were ever really good friends. There would be months and months where I'd never even talk to her. So I don't know what she's talking about, keeping her mouth shut. Now I do. Obviously, it's making up whatever she can make up because there's nothing to keep her mouth shut about. She claims that I'm a pill addict and all of this shit because I have a pain issue where I go to a fucking doctor and actually get pain medication. So that makes me, I guess, a pill addict based on that. So, and keep in mind that, and I don't have any problem with her doing this, but every time she came here to do the show, every break we took, she was outside smoking weed. It was, Jesus, any fucking break, she's smoking, So she's out there fucking, doing basically a pothead. If she wants to call, me, whatever. And I have no problem with that, to be honest. I know has her medical marijuana thing and whatever, and that she has pain issues. And I don't have a problem with anybody doing whatever. To be honest, I don't have a problem with heroin addicts. That's your business. But, that's totally hypocritical if you're going to make allegations about me based on very little knowledge, and then it's okay for you to, you know, smoke weed all the time and whatever you do with your, what are those fucking things? Cannabis oil and all of that shit. So, you know, that's fine, but I'm getting prescription medication and that's not okay. So, whatever. And I didn't know even what that came from, keep talking shit. Because all I said was I called her a troll in anger based on her, what she said about me. So is it really a big deal? You know, take it how you want. She doesn't look exactly like a troll. It was obviously an exaggeration. She's kind of short, you know, whatever. So that had been all I had said when she sent me that message. Now, after I got that message while I was on the air, I didn't mention her name, but I said, you know, people saying that I'm talking shit and, you know, making up lies and whatever. I don't even think I directly insulted her that I can remember. Just addressed that there are people talking shit. So, and I had no idea. So what happened was, fucking Mr. Gruber went and called her without knowing anything of the story. Of course, gets her version of the story. And asks her if I'm talking about her and this and that. And, you know, because I didn't say anything to Sean except that about what I had posted and then that we weren't doing the show anymore. And because I don't even know if I got to the point that she had yelled at me, and that was partially why. So then, of course, Sean, who was supposed to call me back that night, calls me back on Sunday, and I guess she's claiming I threatened him. Calling him a fucking motherfucker is not threatening him. He said that it's my fault and he can tell whoever he wants, and that's his friend. Of course, he had a crush on her for the longest time and had asked me, I don't know if he asked me, but I tried to hook them up and she didn't want anything to do with them. And she actually said, did she say he's weird or some shit like that? Like she didn't want to date him because of some shit like that. So, which, you know, at the time I felt bad for him, but, you know, I had asked her and she said she didn't want anything to do with him. So now she says, she texts me right after I talked to Sean, funny how you don't have the balls to talk to me about this. Get off my watchdog page, psycho. So now I'm a psycho for calling Sean and being upset because essentially when I talked to Sean, I expected him not to say anything until I talked to him because I thought we were actually friends. But he goes and then doesn't call me back for 2 days and then causes all these problems. So, of course, I'm going to be mad. And yeah, I yelled at him. I said, fuck you, you motherfucker. Now, last time I checked, that's not a threat. The guy lives in New Hampshire, first of all, anyway. So there's no threat. There's no nothing. I don't want anything to do with them. And that's what I do. I don't threaten people, first of all, period. because there's no need to threaten somebody. If I wanted to do something, I would do something. And, you know, if friends fuck me over, I just take that as, okay, they're not my friend anymore. They're out of my life, essentially. And that's the end of it. And that's how I take it. And that's why I take it with her, but she keeps texting me. So then she says, and stop threatening my friends, which I did not threaten any of her friends. And she says friends with an S. So, like, she's talking about multiple people. And now she's saying, like, I threatened her or something, which I never did. Now, you look at the other part of this, which is fucking totally, this whole thing is like something people would do in high school, first of all, but she's just taking whatever he said to her as this is what happened. She didn't talk to me about what happened. She didn't ask me what I said. She's just taking the word of a fucking alcoholic. And when I say alcoholic, I mean this dude drinks 20 to 25 beers like a day. I mean, it's insane. He is a straight up alcoholic. And I'm not saying that to insult him. I'm saying it because literally sometimes he doesn't even know what the fuck he's saying, or he doesn't remember it. And, you know, whatever. I had my period where I would drink too much and act fucking stupid and whatever. So I'm not looking down on him for that. I'm just saying you're taking the word of somebody who's probably fucked up when they're talking to you and doesn't even have the story straight. So it says, stop threatening my friends, calling me a nut job. Now, to this point, all I had done was talk to Sean and post that little thing, but I'm a nut job. And call me ugly, ? I didn't call her ugly. I said she looks like a troll. And obviously, she doesn't look exactly like a troll. I don't think she's ugly. She's short. And it was something that popped in my head because of what she said to me to get back at her. But obviously, she blows this thing totally out of proportion to insane levels. And then she says a non-liberty. And I didn't say that. I didn't say that she was not a liberty person, that she didn't do all these things. I never said that because it's not true. I know that she's done all this stuff, and that's fine. And I never criticized her for any of the stuff she did, even though I didn't agree with all of it. Nor have I criticized anybody else for any of the stuff they did. But now she's going and making up shit about me, and I have people that don't even fucking know me telling me, oh, you're a dick, and you're this, and you're that. And you don't even fucking know me. And I guarantee I'm a better person than fucking half of those fucking people. Because I don't fuck people over, number one, like Mr. fucking Gruber did. And I didn't even respond to her when she yelled at me. She's a girl. What am I going to do? I just didn't want the drama. I wanted it over with. Now, I probably shouldn't have posted what I did, but she deserved it. after her yelling at me and hearing that she was, talking shit about what happened. But based on that and me only posting that and purposely doing it so she wouldn't see it and nobody even knowing who I was talking about, I did all that on purpose because I didn't want to have a whole fucking drama thing. But obviously that didn't work. So, stop threatening my friends, nut job. Then she calls, it's funny because she doesn't call me ugly. And trust me, I've dated a lot of girls 50 times prettier than you. So whatever, as is my current fiance. So, but whatever. But, what she said isn't even that insulting. She said, I have a 90s, the 90s called, they want their shitty, haircut back and whatever. And, that's not really that insulting because it is kind of still, I can see how my hair still like the 90s or whatever. I don't give a fuck. And that I've been, she tried to call me that I'm getting fat drinking too many sodas. And that's actually true as well. And I'm trying to cut down on them. So, and then she says, if I'm so non-liberty, which I don't know where she's getting this from because I didn't say she was non-liberty. I've never said that. Why did you beg me to do a show and keep begging me for support? Now, I didn't beg her to do the show. I did in the past ask her a lot to come on, but I didn't beg her to do this show, actually, because I thought she was going to say no anyway. So I only remember asking her once, and keep begging her for support. Now, I didn't beg her for support, but I did ask, because they have developed from their activism a whole group of Facebook friends. Whereas when I originally started my Facebook page, I only had people that I knew. But, so I'm way behind. If I took my Nonpartisan Liberty for All page that has 430 something people and I could actually invite all of them, then that'd be another story, but I can't. And they have all these friends on their pages, and Kelly uses Cop Block and promotes it that way too. So they have access to things that I don't. So obviously, I did ask them any promotion that you guys can do. I wasn't begging, but I did. So what? Of course, I'm trying to get as much promotion as possible. So I asked them to can you guys help, promote the show and promote the network? And then she says, no one likes you. And that would only be her friends, of course, which are mostly conservatives, which I can't fucking stand anyway. She doesn't know the people that I know, and okay, whatever. It's like, no one likes you. Like, she's like, I'm a little kid, okay? And you've been doing your show for what, 3 years, which it hasn't been 3 years, and you get 30 listeners. I get more than 30 listeners, but it depends on the show. I do the show 3 nights a week. Like I said, there was a show with Ken a couple weeks ago that had 84 listeners. That doesn't mean that my show sucks. What it means is it's a popularity contest, and I'm a shy person, and I kind of stick to myself, and that's what I do. And if people don't like me for that, then fine, fuck them. I am able to talk on the radio without being shy, but in general, I'm a shy person. And when I'm around people I don't know, and that's just how it is. And, she said, you only get 30 listeners. Kelly and I had over 100 listeners for 2 shows. You're a fucking crazy ass pharmaceutical drug addict and people know it. Okay. I don't know how people would know anything, for one. And, the other side of it is, you want to brag about, well, we got all these listeners. Okay, that's great. Then go do the show someplace else. That's what I had said to them. I don't want to work with you. I don't know why, I don't want to work with you. And for whatever reason, you feel the need to keep Facebook messaging me and texting me on my phone when I just don't want anything to fucking do with you. I think you're insane. I honestly do. Because going to this level, if you were like 16 or something, maybe I'd expect this. But going to this level is fucking nuts. And now it's, okay, who can I find to badmouth me? So you're so obsessed that you feel that you need to go out and waste all your time making up lies and talking shit about me. Now, I wouldn't even be talking about you because I didn't plan on it if I didn't see the 2 messages. One I just got during the show where now I'm getting, insulted by your friends, by your lies and your whatever. So now I know you're going around making up all this fucking shit. So, you can continue to do that. And really, I guess do whatever. At this point, I don't care. If you feel the need to go and make up all these lies about me and go and tell people, most of which I don't even know personally, and try to fuck with my life because you're that much of a bitch that you want to fuck with my, what I'm trying to do, then, go ahead. But realize that, how fucked up that is in the first place. When really, in the big scheme of things, I didn't really do anything to you except I called you a troll. I said you look like a troll. That's it. That's what I did. I said you look like a troll. I don't literally mean you look like a troll. I don't think you're ugly. I don't think you're like, a supermodel or anything neither. But, it was something to say to get back at you for yelling at me and talking shit about me. So it is what it is. So you can continue to keep telling your friends and they can continue to keep posting, and then I can continue to keep blocking them, and we can just go through this whole process, I guess. And, that's fine. You can try to ruin my show and, take your best shot, I guess. Luckily, it's not just Vegas. Also, there are, 2.5 million people in the Vegas area. Just so you know. So, you know, if you want to dedicate part of your life to bad-mouthing me and trying to put down my show, then go do that. And, you know, the only other thing I have to say is, you know, I don't want anything to do with any of you people that are out there, you know, bad-mouthing me. And if you want to just believe what comes out of her mouth, I'm sure most of the people that know her have heard her go on talking shit about people, because I have, my fiance has, I'm sure other people have. So, you know, I'm not going to waste my time going around telling people about you, because it's a waste of my fucking time. I never told the story. I never said anything really on the radio except for a response to your text, but I still didn't even say it was you. But, you know, you taking it too far. So I felt that I needed to come out and tell what really happened. So people can believe me or not. That's up to them. Bottom line is, I know what really happened. I know that I'm a good person. And I know I'm trying to do something good and trying to accomplish something good. And I'm not going to let anybody stop me. You know, I think maybe that you think if you get enough people in Vegas to unfriend me and talk shit, then maybe I'll say, well, I'm not going to do my show anymore because, you know, people don't want to listen now or whatever. But it's not going to happen. So that's all I got to say about it. Whether I get more posts from people or not, I'm not going to say anything else about it, period. I did say on the other show, if you want to say threaten people, all I said was, and I don't think this is where it came from anyway, I said if anybody tries to attack me, so if this gets to a level where, you know, people try to attack me over this, I will defend myself. And that was what I had said on my last show after the message. It wasn't pointed at anybody specific because, you know, I don't know who would try to attack me. Obviously, I'm not going to hit a girl, so I'm meaning if any guys try to attack me, that, you know, I can defend myself, so I'm not worried about that. So, and I will do what I have to do to physically defend my life and that of my fiance or anybody else in my house. So now I'm not saying that anybody is planning to attack me. I don't think they have any reason to, but when people make up lies, you know, like they are now, who knows? So, yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say about it. Period. End of, you know, unless, you know, whatever, I get attacked or something like that. With the exception of that, I don't have anything else to say about Tasha or Sean Gruber or any other people that post talking shit about me. They post it on my page. And I'm not 16 years old, and I don't need to respond with threats or, you know, do anything about it. It's only words, so say what you want to say and whatever. I'll just remember those people, and I will never obviously associate with them. And that's pretty much it. That's, if you want to call that a threat, then I guess that's my threat, that yes, if you, you know, want to go to that extent to badmouth me and talk shit about me and not even knowing me, just listening to some liar's story, then yes, I don't want anything to do with you, and I will make a note of that just in case if you ever come up and anybody asks me, oh, do you know this person? You know, then I will say what I know. But besides that, I have no need to say anything else about any of you. Except it's pretty pathetic. And it's just, the whole thing is just, it's insane to me. It really is that somebody would do something like that. I'm kind of even in like shock to an extent. Like, are you serious? Like, you know, I knew that she talked a lot of shit about people, but I didn't know she was to the extent, nor did I know these other people are too. So, yeah, well, we'll take a quick break and get myself together and end the show there. So we'll be right back after this.
It's not often that a TV talk show argument gets talked about more than a few minutes after that TV show ends, but a batch of articles continue to appear today, including Nick Kristoff's in the New York Times, about the argument that Ben Affleck and Nick Kristoff had with Bill Maher and Sam Harris on Bill Maher's show on Friday night. An argument that Nick Kristoff said today was, quote, a TV brawl.
We have been sold this meme of Islamophobia, where every criticism of the doctrine of Islam gets conflated with bigotry toward Muslims as people.
Right.
That is, it's intellectually ridiculous.
Why are you so hostile about this
Because it's gross. It's racist.
It's not. But it's so not.
It's like saying
it's so not.
You're shifty Jew.
You're not listening
Absolutely
to
not.
what we are saying.
You guys are saying if you want to be liberals, believe in liberal principles like freedom of speech, like we are endowed by our forefathers with an inalienable rights, like all men are created equal.
Ben, we have to be able to criticize bad ideas. And
of course we do. No liberal doesn't want to criticize bad ideas.
But Islam at this moment is the mother lode of bad ideas.
Jesus.
So we have ideas like blasphemy. There are hundreds of millions of Muslims who are nominal Muslims who don't take the faith seriously, who don't want to kill apostates, who are horrified by ISIS, and we need to defend these people, prop them up, and let them reform.
Dude, you're talking ISIS couldn't fill a AA ballpark in Charleston, West Virginia, and you're making a career out of ISIS.
But no, it's not just ISIS. It's all jihadists. It's global. It's a phenomenon of global jihad.
This is such a caricature of Indonesia, of Malaysia, much of the world. And this does have the tinge a little bit of the way white racists talk about African Americans.
Joining me now is Sam Harris, whose new book is Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion. His first book, The End of Faith, won the 2005 Penn Award for nonfiction. Sam, I just want to give you the rules of discussion on this show. When I shout over you, you must immediately stop and agree with me, okay, in order to continue the discussion. All right, thanks, Sam. Okay.
You're even harder than Ben Affleck.
It is. It's going to be a tough one. So, I've been reading what Nick Kristof has written about this today and what other critics of you have written about this today. And there's something fascinating in every one of those articles. And that is how much they agree with you. I want to read you a passage from Nick Kristof's column today. And this is something that I swear, if it had no author's name on it, I would expect to see the name Sam Harris somewhere near it. He says, today, the Islamic world includes a strain that truly is disproportionately intolerant and oppressive. Barbarians in the Islamic State cite their faith as the reason for their monstrous behavior, most recently beheading a British aid worker devoted to saving Muslim lives, and give all Islam a bad name. Moreover, of the 10 bottom-ranking countries in the world, Economic Forum's report on women's rights, 9 are majority Muslim. In Afghanistan, Jordan, and Egypt, more than 3/4 of Muslims favor the death penalty for Muslims who renounce their faith, according to a Pew survey. The persecution of Christians, Ahmadis, Yazidis, Baha'i, and Shiites is far too common in the Islamic world. And Sam, when I read that, and when I listen to that discussion that went on Friday night, it seems to me that the key line in it was when Bill Maher said, "You're not listening to us." And I think that's easy to happen in those kinds of TV back and forth. But it's so interesting how much you all actually agree, where the areas of agreement actually are.
Well, and the irony is that even when someone like Nick Kristof thinks he's not agreeing with me, he's actually proving my point. So he's arguing that we're not acknowledging all the people who are making heroic efforts to reform the faith or to criticize so-called extremism. But then he goes on to say how much courage this takes, because their lives are in danger in dozens of Muslim countries, merely for advocating for human rights, which of course proves my point. That the point is that there's what we're calling radical Islam or extremist Islam or fundamentalist Islam is massively well subscribed in the Muslim world, and there are reams of polling data to attest to this, mostly the Pew polls, but also Gallup polls. And so he'll cite a country like Indonesia as being the poster child for Muslim moderation, and it is moderate compared to Pakistan or Sudan or Saudi Arabia, but 70% of Indonesians want to live under Sharia law, and when you ask specific questions about what sorts of punishments they want enforced, 40% want adulterers stoned to death. Now, it's true only 16% want apostates stoned to death, but that's the best, more or less the best result you get on that question in the Muslim world, with the exception of a place like Albania. So when you look at any of these specific questions, and this is my argument, that specific beliefs have consequences, you have a really terrifying level of subscription to very scary ideas like apostates should be killed, or blasphemers should be killed, or the Danish cartoonist should have been killed or prosecuted. These are, in many, many countries, these numbers are up around 70%, 80% in places like Pakistan, and we have to talk honestly about it. This is not the fringe of the fringe. This is mainstream. It may not be mainstream in Los Angeles or New York, but it is mainstream worldwide for Islam.
Well, there's always a huge gap between beliefs and acting on beliefs, I think, in this kind of arena in particular. And so that's another part of this that I think the other side of the debate that you're in, which, as I say, is with people who largely agree with you, it includes, I think, that notion that they feel on their side of the table that you are saying that these people, that poll says, therefore, that Indonesians are ready to go out there and behead people.
Well, this is something I asked in the green room after our fight on the panel. In response to Nick and Ben's point that there's so many people who stand up against ISIS, there have been demonstrations, there's a hashtag not in our name. But I asked both of them, what would have happened if we had burned a Quran on tonight's show? And they knew what would happen. There would be riots in scores of countries. Embassies would likely burn. People would certainly get killed. And we would spend the rest of our lives hiding from theocrats under credible threat of death. Now, that's just a fact. It's a fact that neither of them would deny. And yet, what we have in response to ISIS, who is crucifying people by the side of the road, raping women by the thousands, torturing women, and burying children alive, in the name of Islam, we have a hashtag and we have some demonstrations. Now, I support the hashtag. I support those demonstrations, but we need a groundswell of repudiation of this kind of behavior. And the problem is, and I'm not denying that some people repudiate it, and many millions of Muslims are horrified, but the problem is ISIS is behaving in a way that is sanctioned by a literal reading of the Quran and the Hadith. You can take sex slaves among the infidels. You should cut the infidels' heads off. This is a plausible version of the faith, and it's not a plausible version of Buddhism. So the comparison to the Buddhists who are in Myanmar now killing Muslims is a facile one, because these Buddhists are killing Muslims. It's horrible. It is a sign of tribal violence, but it is not a sign of an honest implementation of the doctrine of Buddhism. You can't find anywhere in the Pali Canon that tells you to go destroy the lives of innocent people. That is something that ISIS is doing, and they are doing it very much in a paint-by-numbers way. And the challenge is for Muslims to speak honestly about this and to reform the faith, find a way of contextualizing these beliefs and reinterpreting them. And there are Muslims who are doing that. Irshad Manji is doing that. Majid Nawaz is doing that. I totally support these people. But the Muslims who get on television, people like Reza Aslan and the liberal apologists like Glenn Greenwald and Nicholas Kristof, who say that this has nothing to do with Islam, ISIS or Al-Qaeda, they're just playing hide the ball with the articles of faith, and I think that is dishonest and ultimately dangerous for all of us.
Well, one of the things they're saying, Sam, is that there are many articles of faith in the Quran and in the Bible, and there are passages in the Bible that say, the penalty for adultery is death. And there are passages in the Quran that say you should not kill anyone, and then there are other passages that say for certain reasons you should. But you mentioned Reza Aslan. Here's what he wrote about this, about your in writing about your argument on television, under the headline, "Bill Maher isn't the only one who misunderstands religion." Under that headline, he writes, "People of faith are far too eager to distance themselves from extremists in their community, often denying that religious violence has any religious motivation whatsoever. This is especially true of Muslims." Now, Sam, if I saw Bill's name attached to that, or if I saw your name attached to that, I would think, that's pretty much what they're saying.
Well, I give Reza credit for making that point. I think that was very much in response to the blog post I wrote the day before. But he usually doesn't make that point, and there are many things in his article that take that point back. For instance, he says that no religion is intrinsically violent; it's all a matter of interpretation, and Buddhism is just as potentially violent as Islam. And he cited the Burmese Buddhists, and all of that just muddied the message. The basic point that most people want to believe is that all religions are equally benign or equally irrelevant. They all more or less teach the same thing when they're wise. They teach the same thing when they're not wise. And for the most part, good people will be good and bad people will be bad with or without religion. And that it's all a matter of politics and culture and economics. And religion is never really pulling the strings of human behavior. No one's really blowing themselves up in a crowd of children because they think they're going to get to paradise and get 72 virgins. The problem is everything I just said in that paragraph is false. And we have to grapple with this fact. People really believe these things, and they are really motivated by their beliefs. And if you believe that the Quran is the perfect word of the creator of the universe, it is absolutely rational to hate the infidel, to think that the infidel
Just do it!
So in just a few months, the presidential race will heat up when President Obama and Mitt Romney face off in the debates. But there could be a party crasher this year, or I should say a third party crasher. Last week, the executive director of the Commission on Presidential Debates hinted that Libertarian presidential candidate Gary Johnson may soon meet the requirements to be included in the presidential debates this year. He's already met the first two requirements, which is being of age and nationality to run for president, and his name will appear on enough state ballots to give him a mathematical shot at actually winning. But the third criteria will be a bit tougher. Johnson is going to need to be polling at 15% to be included. Currently, he's around 5%, so he has a lot of work to do. But let's assume he meets the threshold. What happens when a libertarian enters the fray? Well, he could pull fiscal conservative votes away from Mitt Romney, and given his stance on the drug war, foreign wars, marriage equality, and civil liberties, he could pull a lot of progressives away from President Obama. But when it comes to the big picture direction of America, is libertarian really the best way to go? Here to discuss that is Connor Kilpatrick, managing editor at Jacobin Magazine, and Austin Peterson, libertarian and director of production for FreedomWorks. Austin, Connor, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
So, Connor, I want to start with you. You have an article up on Alternet this week, and you describe libertarians as the ruling elite's last-ditch effort to ensure a succession to the throne. You want to riff on that?
Yeah, well, I think that the ruling class, the 1%, accepts that they've basically lost the culture wars. They accept that most people, especially young people, are for gay marriage and against the wars. So this is a way to basically put a tepid, progressive spin on a really far-right, radical economic, program.
Do you agree with that, Austin? Is this a radical far-right economic program that libertarians are?
First of all, who are these elites? And I mean, libertarians, like in general, who are you speaking of specifically, sir? I mean, like the elites want libertarians to win. I mean, the libertarians are conspiring, perhaps, they're conspiring to take over the government so that they can leave you alone. Why? So that gays can happily get married and that conservatives can happily stuff themselves with chicken sandwiches? Yeah, that's the kind of conspiracy that I want to get in on, sir. Because I got to ask you this, Connor, because I read your vile and despicable and hate-filled article. I want to know, if libertarians supported big corporations, then why don't big corporations support libertarianism? So why isn't the Libertarian Party dominating? Why is it that they always support the corporatist Republicans and the corporatist Democrats? Why is it that we see Obama giving billions in failed loans to failed Solyndra? Right. Why is it we...
Let him answer.
Go ahead.
Yes, because the ruling class doesn't take libertarianism seriously. I mean, it's basically a weapon to clear a lot of space to the right for both the Republican Party, but, it serves the Democratic Party pretty well, too. I mean, when you could point at a bunch of kind of crazy foaming-at-the-mouth Tea Partiers, and it enables someone like Barack Obama to push a pretty extreme austerity agenda of his own, because basically he's always going to look like he's to the left of that and the reasonable alternative. So it's a weapon. It's a con job. I mean, it's the Scientology of political ideologies, but without the pretty people.
I mean, isn't the Tea Party essentially espousing a lot of the same ideas that libertarians want
I think
to enact?
that partially there is some of that.
Aren't lots of wealthy people funding the Tea Party? Maybe they don't want to fund the Libertarian Party because it is kind of an extremist party. They'd rather just take over the Republican Party by this kind of AstroTurf
Right, and it's a great thing to do. I mean, the socialists took over the Democratic Party throughout the 1920s, and the progressive era reached their heights, and the progressive socialist Democrats got their agenda enacted throughout the New Deal. So why isn't that a legitimate strategy for libertarians and limited government activists to do the same thing to the Republican Party? But I want to really introduce the point that he made that was actually a relevant point, which was the beginning of his article, which was the loss of the culture wars. But he says that the elites lost the culture wars, and what he really needs to say is that social conservatism lost the culture wars, that people are no longer bigoted against homosexuals, and that people want to allow homosexuals to get married and do what they want, and they want to have more civil liberties. So I think that in that sense that the culture wars in that sense have been lost, and that free markets and civil liberties are the way that people are going forward. But what the author of this article doesn't like is that people are embracing economic liberty at the same time that they're embracing civil liberties.
Well, I think we also probably
Let's do me a favor. Let's talk about just what kind of economic liberties he's talking about. I mean, most Americans spend probably about half of their waking hours in a workplace for an employer. And while you're working for a corporation or working for a private employer, libertarians, they don't care at all about your freedom. In fact, they embrace the most radical, tyrannical programs and regimes. That's not what I would call freedom in any meaningful way. I mean, most Americans experience coercion and quote-unquote unfreedom in the workplace, not the TSA.
So you think the socialist Democrats that support the murdering of American citizens by drones in Pakistan are for the elite? So you think that the libertarians who are opposing these kinds of redistributionist welfare programs that feed into the welfare warfare state are the ones who are feeding into the elite, and not Barack Obama and George W. Bush and the real elites that are destroying this country and robbing the wealth of the poor in this country, and the people who want to raise the minimum wage so that we raise unemployment.
All right, let's not filibuster. Go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, hold on a second. The welfare warfare state. So according to you, that would mean that the center of what we refer to as the welfare state. Very good. Norway, Scandinavian countries. I mean, why aren't they building Guantanamo Bays in Greenland? I mean, if welfare creates tyranny, well, those, the Scandinavians, Northern Europeans, that's the most welfare-happy country in the West.
I want to get back
to their tyranny.
I want to get back to this idea of defining liberties. You talked about socialist Democrats taking control of the party back in the 30s. Roosevelt famously said, necessitous men are not free men, that freedom requires your basic necessities to be met. If this is stuff we talk about on the show all the time. If you don't have a job and you want a job, you're not free. If you're hungry and don't have food, you're not free. If you're sick and don't have health care, you're not free. So you can call it socialist or not, but I think what Roosevelt was trying to do is, and what you call the socialist Democrats were trying to do, is provide the basic essentials to have freedom. Do you consider that? Is that a definition of freedom you would accept or not?
Well, ask yourself this. I mean, so many people are against immigration in this country, but why do immigrants come to the United States? Do they come here for the welfare programs? I mean,
fewer immigrants are coming than ever before, and actually more people are leaving the United States.
Right, and that's a bad sign. We want a strong economy so that we can encourage immigration to the United States. But welfare, if you ask any immigrant that comes over here, or some people who are coming across the border, fleeing across the border because of the failed economy of Mexico, or people who want to come here from other countries in Europe and Asia, why do they come here? They don't come here because they're getting universal health care. If they wanted that, they would go to Britain or they would go to Scandinavia or one of those countries that you say are much more free. No, they.
But using the slogan, they got through the USA Patriot Act, which removes many of our liberties. Nobody made a sound when we lost habeas corpus, due process of law. Suddenly Bush managed to get rid of it. Where was a voice on television, aside from mine, that spoke out against this? Where are all those noble jurists, those great lawyers, those lovers of liberty? Where the hell were they? They were nowhere. Now we have a totalitarian government. And the totalitarian government wants to watch everybody, total surveillance of everyone. They listen to the telephone conversations. They look at your credit cards. They look where you travel. We are totally policed. This is contrary to everything in our Constitution.
A 2010 Pentagon directive details what critics say is a policy that envisions the Obama administration's potential use of military force against Americans. The directive has non-controversial provisions on support to civilian fire, emergency services, and domestic use of the Army Corps of Engineers. But the Washington Times reports that the troubling aspect of the directive is that it outlines the presidential authority for the use of military arms and forces, including drones, in operations of domestic unrest.
I believe it would be constitutional for the government to target and kill any U.S. citizen with a drone or with a shotgun without due process. Nor should any president deploy armed drones over U.S. soil.
Okay, well, a troubling new report is now revealing that a secret memo from 2010 outlined the administration's potential use of military force against Americans in the United States of America. A defense source brought this to my attention and was fairly concerned about it, said, look, this appears to be the latest step in the administration's decision to, at some point, use force against American citizens in the future. There are a lot of people concerned about this, and then you see this memo in connection with the growing militarization of many of the non-security agencies of government.
In Connecticut, tens of thousands of residents have failed to comply with a new law that requires gun owners to register all military-style rifles with the state. In response to the Sandy Hook school shooting that resulted in 26 fatalities, Connecticut passed one of the strongest gun control measures in the nation. It's estimated that only 15% of gun owners have applied for assault weapons certificates, meaning the remainder could very soon become Class D felons.
Well, I think they're going to have a hard time putting this back in compliance, especially when precedence is already set here in Capitol Hill with our president, who is changing the laws, which he's breaking the federal laws every day with what the stance that he's taking on different legislations, primarily his health care plan. So people look at that and say, well, why should we abide by these laws if the president is breaking these laws?
Days after a mass shooting and stabbing spree by a California college student, a number of state lawmakers are pushing to make it more difficult for potential killers to get their hands on a gun. In California, state lawmakers are now considering a bill called Assembly Bill 1014. It would create a first-in-the-nation gun violence restraining order system similar to the way domestic violence restraining orders are issued. If granted, police could then temporarily seize any firearms the person already owned and add their name to a list of people prohibited from purchasing weapons.
Tanks, guns, armor, all tried and tested on the battlefield. Now some of it is here in central Indiana on our streets, being used to keep us safe. It's surplus military hardware that's found a new home.
Fox 59's Russ McQuaid tonight shows us how some of our local police departments are now armed for war.
Surplus U.S. military hardware is coming home from the wars, being assigned to the streets and back roads of central Indiana to keep Hoosiers safe at the time of escalating homeland violence.
Once it patrolled Afghanistan. Now it's an armored SWAT vehicle with windshields that can take a direct hit from a .50 caliber weapon, a gun turret up top, and the armor to protect at least a half dozen cops inside.
When I first started, we really didn't have the violence that we see today. The weaponry is totally different now than it was in the beginning of my career. Plus, you have a lot of people that are coming out of the military that have the ability and the knowledge to build IEDs and to defeat law enforcement techniques.
This is Congressman Hank Johnson. Georgia Congressman Hank Johnson is worried about Pentagon spending and small-town cops who have acquired helicopter parts and boats and bayonets and guns they don't need or can't keep track of, and he's ready to write clampdown legislation.
We've been reporting about this all along. Police are arming themselves to fight against your average American citizen, conservatives, patriots, and definitely returning military. Why aren't people seeing this? Well, perhaps because their local news stations are massaging it into their brain that this is completely normal.
According to the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, police officers no longer need warrants to search a person's vehicle. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled 4-2 that police officers can search a vehicle without a warrant. Critics say the ruling gives too much power to police and will infringe on citizens' privacy.
Are you ready for the next big thing? It may be moving in with you. The Financial Times reports that next week, Apple will announce a new way to connect you to what techies call the Internet of Things.
One of the concepts people have been talking about is Apple getting into what they call kind of the smart home or the Internet of Things. That's an area a lot of big companies like Google are very interested in, so Apple's got to be interested in it also.
If we have this sort of home invasion, if you will, by all these devices, do you think this is something consumers want or are going to embrace?
It's something we thought about since the World's Fair, since the Jetsons. It's an intriguing concept. I'm not sure how much of it people actually want to integrate into their lives.
You think this is the next frontier of technology then?
It's one of the potential next frontiers, and whether somebody, maybe a big guy like Apple, can get everything to work together, that's always the key, getting everybody on the same plan at the same time.
I would be fascinated if someone doesn't want this technology, because I think it's amazing. It's life-changing.
Yeah, certainly.
The National Security Agency is collecting a massive...
We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get the ticket, the enforcement. But at the end of the day, each and every member should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous